Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you for joining us to the inaugural episode of Purse Full of Snacks.
Yes.
I am your host, Mario Munguia, from Infighting Hub, formerly known from the Boxing Voice. I've been on a lot over the last 10 years, and over the last 10 years, there's been one thing that I've wanted more than anything, and that is to criticize directors and writers and every single person that makes the movies, TV shows, and documentaries that we love. And more than that, I wanted to start a show with my wife, who I love and who I respect, who is the one of the smartest people I've ever known in my life, person whose opinions I think more of than my own. I think you're on.
Yep.
Yeah, you got to take that on mute. And so that's what we're here to do today. Inaugural show, very special show. And we are going to be covering weekly on Tuesdays. Whatever we're watching, movies, TV shows, docs, if we would have started in the summer, I think what was it, Chimp Lady, or what was her name?
Oh, the Crazy Chimp. I don't know the name.
Chimp
Crazy. I don't
Chimp Crazy. Yeah. And so, we would have done something like that. So today we are talking about Aaron Hernandez and the HULU show that is on. This is a series that's going on, American Sports. Was it?
I want you to know you didn't even let me.
First of all, I was just giving like a thing to the thing.
I feel like this is
my beautiful wife,
show.
whose opinion I love. Now, can you stop when I'm talking? No, I'm kidding. I'm so sorry, Ash. It's Ashley Smashley from TikTok.
Yes,
you know her well.
Yes. So I'm Ashley. As you could see from what my husband said, I do mental health, going to school, I work, we watch movies, shows, we like to chop it up together, talk about it. And so that's really what this podcast is about, is just putting it out there, putting out our thoughts and our opinions and seeing what you guys think. So we are really glad to have you here. We're really glad to have our first live, and welcome.
Definitely. Super excited. I'm sorry about that. I'm sure I will. There will be spit in my carnegie-asada, I have no doubt. No, it's been a while since,
Oh, I want to do a shout out to our shirts. This is my Schitt's Creek shirt. Ew, David. And Mario is wearing, of course, a classic Simpsons shirt.
Yeah. The finale that they teased us with a few weeks ago. But yeah, listen, today's a very important show. While we want to keep things light and have fun, the Aaron Hernandez show on HULU has brought to light a lot of different things for us. As a sports fan and a football fan that I've been forever, played football in middle school, baseball in high school, tried to walk on in college. And I was unaware of a lot of the stuff that goes on when a collegiate athlete is preparing himself to go into the draft, which is essentially to say a young kid, a kid is about to become a millionaire.
Their prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed. So
exactly.
They're a kid.
And possibly not, coming from a less than fortunate situation monetarily, right? Millions and millions of dollars can be huge. So today we have a really special guest. This is a person who I went to high school with. Whenever, high school was still, had payphones in it. That was when I went to high school. And he is a former collegiate football player from New Mexico State. And he also coached in college, specifically with UTSA. He's a lineman. One of the strongest guys I've ever known, pound for pound. Polo Gutierrez, man, how are you doing, brother? I'm so happy that you were able to do the show. I'm so glad that you're here in front of us today. What's going on, man?
Not much. I appreciate y'all having me. It's fun. I love to do anything, and especially talk about sports and educate people about kind of the rigors and what athletes go through, because it is tough. It is tough.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think what makes you such a great expert is the fact that you've been on both sides of the ball. You were a player, you were a coach. Today you're a father. And specifically, I want to say this because this is your first time meeting my wife, Ashley. This is Polo. Polo, this is
nice
Ashley.
To meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
And one thing I've told her a little bit about, but I didn't, obviously she doesn't know like I know. I feel like the two of us, while we didn't come from like a ton of money family-wise, we were like the richest kids in school, one of the richest kids, because we were both parented at a super high level. Mr. Gutierrez, who's your father, we spent the night at each other's houses at times. We played on the same baseball team, so we would travel. You were always destined, we knew, to be a much higher level athlete than the rest of us, but we all had fun as kids. Looking back on your dad and knowing him the way that I did, and knowing the way that he was with you, he's one of the people who showed me what being a man is like. I had a great father, but sometimes you don't really look at your father or pay attention to him, at an early age, and you look at other people, right? So when I look back at my friends whose fathers were huge influences and incredible role models, I think of him for sure.
Well, I appreciate it, man. What's funny is I run into to high school, friends and all that all over the place, even middle school friends. And the number one question they ask me is, dude, how's your father, man?
Mm-hmm.
And they start telling me stories. They're like, I remember getting to Padre baseball field, and literally when we got out of our car, we could hear your dad coaching on the field that was 100 yards away, because he was just so loud and just so up in your face. But yeah, man,
Definitely.
He made me the man I am today, for sure.
What a beautiful thing to have a parent that's so admired, that gave back not just to you as a child, but also to a community,
Exactly.
your friends and things. Because those people, whether they realize it or not, they become parent figures to other people.
Exactly.
My best friend in high school, her mom, if I called her right now, she'd probably still do anything she could for me, So that's very important, those type of adults that do that.
It definitely is. And while we wanted to bring you on to talk about some of the questions that we had, we don't want to talk specifically about Aaron Hernandez. We will be doing that later in the show.
Right.
What we wanted to do was talk about some of the really, I'll say upsetting, honestly, things that we found out about the process that kids have to go through to become millionaires based on their physical prowess inside the NFL draft. And I wanted to start off, before we get into it, I wanted to bring up something. And I wanted to bring something up, and I wanted to do it after I, gave your dad his flowers that he absolutely deserves, by telling a story and getting to the crux of all this. Because while I played sports, I no longer played sports after college, or in college too. And so I've gotten really, really far away from it, to the point that I think about things differently. And I want to bring up a story, and I want you to tell me what you think about it today. We were freshmen or sophomore. No, we were freshmen in school, and you were a 2-sport athlete in high school. Very, very good hitter.
Wow.
He once hit a ball that I don't think has come down yet. Either that, or some kid in Robstown's got a welt on his head from when it finally did come down. But I remember you were going to spend the night at my house, right? We were kids, freshmen, and we both had a tournament that weekend. And so your dad was a little hesitant about letting you spend the night because, sports is a serious business, right? And that's the way it should be thought of. But I remember that he eventually allowed you to come to spend the night, right? And him and my dad, they got along,
right.
Well. I think they saw a lot of each other, old school guys who,
right.
And
their coaching styles wouldn't fly anymore, but that's for sure.
Exactly. But he said that, and look, I don't know how much he was kidding. All I know is you took it serious. He said that you could spend the night, but mind you, it was like 9-10 o'clock at night.
Right.
But you can only do so if you performed X amount of long snaps for practice at my house at like 11 o'clock at night. And I remember at the time as a kid, I'm like, hell yeah. You're asking me to long snap to me, and then I get to long snap back to you? Fuck yeah, let's go. I mean, there wasn't PlayStation 4s and Xboxes, you know what I mean?
No doubt.
But I'll do that right now if Ash wants to go out and try to hike the ball.
No thanks.
I look at that and I think to myself, specifically growing up over the last 30 years, wow, what a father who's so committed to his son, and he's trying to instill these values and the hard work and ethics that you could be doing anything, right? It didn't matter if it was football, it could have been anything. But then I also look at it and I think to myself, did Polo have an honest, fair chance at becoming like the best pianist that he could have been? Like, could Polo have been one of the best mathematicians ever? Could Polo have, used that time at my house when we were already going to play baseball that weekend to do a non-athletics thing? When looking at this today, what are your memories as far as how hard you were pushed in the direction of football, despite loving it? Do you ever feel like maybe there was something else that could have been there and you were maybe pushed by coaches and family and things in a direction that, yes, suited you, but maybe not the best?
Oh yeah, 100%. But I mean, I loved athletics. I've never said this, and I've never said this on a show before, but baseball was my number one sport. I loved it, baseball,
Wow.
and I wish I could have continued baseball. And I have all these trophies and all these things that I did for football, and I love football, and it gave me a life that I'm very proud of. But if our coaches would have allowed us, it just started that big trend of, hey, if you're going to play baseball and you're going to be a starter, that you need to basically commit to baseball, and you can't go play
Yes,
other sports.
exactly.
You can't do all these things. And we were good at multiple sports. And I get it. We're at a big high school, and we're at 5A high school at that time, which is the biggest in Texas. And they had the right to tell us, but it wasn't fair because we were great athletes. We wanted to play multiple things. And so, but sports, I loved it. And parents are always going to push their kids into my dad was a collegiate basketball player. He played at A&I, Texas
I
A&I
remember.
back in the day.
Shout out.
So he always, he pushed me on the basketball court ever since I was a little kid. I hate basketball because of how hard he pushed us on the basketball court growing up, right? And there were so many times where, if you've ever seen the movie He Got Game and Jesus Shuttlesworth, and throwing the basketball and being like, forget
Hell
this,
yeah.
just get out of here, man.
Yeah, I've never
So
seen that.
Oh, it's a great
that's
movie.
a great movie. But it's about a dad that pushed his son so hard, and he ended up doing great things. But I hated basketball because my dad pushed it so hard on us, and I gravitated towards other sports. And I was, ever since we were little kids, thank the Lord, I was good at it. I was good at did multiple sports, so that you naturally get involved and love certain things because you're good at them, and because people start patting you on the back. But yeah, I mean, I went to art class, and I know I wasn't an artist. I went to music class. I know I wasn't a pianist. So the one thing I probably, if I could do it, I love movies and I love shows, and I would have loved to maybe done some more in the acting business or in something like that. But other
Sure.
than that, I mean, God put me, I think, where He wants me.
I think so too. Because first of all, you received a full scholarship to the New Mexico State University. I'm not going to say that it's rare in terms of great players getting full scholarships, but that was at a time when it was starting to become a thing where coaches and colleges were kind of giving you partials and then trying to like figure ways around so that they could leave scholarship money on the table for like more players, right? You got 100%. That's how good you were. You broke records at our schools, both middle school and high school, for how strong you were. How, listen, we all knew that if anybody at that school had a chance of going beyond, it was you. And you did that. But today you're in real estate. Today, you got the clean hair and everything, and you look good in a suit, by the way. But how different is it? Do you miss still being in that world, or does it help you to kind of put it all in kind of better perspective so that we can expect that polo book one day?
Well, I tell you what, athletics and coaching it, playing it, and then getting out of it and being successful in another career. I tell people all the time, athletics is great for everybody. Period. End of story. It puts foundation down that cannot be moved by anybody or anything. And so if you can take hard coaching, you're going to be able to be an employed adult no matter what you are. And if you're able to get up in the mornings and work your tail off in athletics, you're able to do that in other facets. And so sports and the amount of training that it took and the hard work it took has led me to being successful no matter what we're going to end up doing, because we just know how to work hard. And so that's something that is invaluable. And I tell people all the time with their kids, I always say, hey, an idle mind and idle hands are the devil's playground. Get your kids doing something. I don't care
Very
what
true.
it is.
Very
And
true.
so, get them involved, get them to learn what it is to, hey, work for something and to build something and to do something. And so that's kind of where I was at.
I definitely agree with that sentiment as far as, sports teach you things that other things cannot. Just being athletic, having some sort of discipline, whether it's music, whether it's sports, whatever it is. But as someone that I did not start sports until I was in high school. I grew up very poor. It was kind of like the money we did have went to my brother to play football. So I played sports in a sense just to have something to do. I'm from Aransas Pass, which is a very small town, which I know you guys have heard of. But so it was just kind of to keep
That's
me out
the
of
hillbilly school, right?
Hey,
No, I was
hey,
kidding.
hey, hey. I have all of my
I'm
teeth.
just kidding.
Thank
I'm
you
just
very
kidding.
much. No, I'm just kidding. But for me, sports was just something to do. I have noticed in a lot of men, really, and I think it's because of really how the patriarchal society is set up, that sports makes men so competitive and competitive to the point where they are so down on themselves when they can't accomplish that one thing that they've
Great
been
point.
told is the only thing that they're really of value.
Great point.
And that's the one downside I see to boys and men in sports, is that kind of standard of just making boys and men feel like that's all that they're worth. Was that ever something that you battled or dealt with?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, Mario knows my background. I was with a single
Mhm.
father, and we didn't have much. I mean, we had a one
Right.
bedroom apartment, and we barely had furniture. I mean, this was my way out.
Right.
If I couldn't get a scholarship, I don't know where I would have gone, how I would have been able to afford college. I would have been over my head in debt, and so I always looked at it. I mean, ever since I was a little kid, I looked at it as this is my job, and I need to earn
Right.
a scholarship, and I need to do all these things, and I do. But men, it doesn't even matter in sports. Yes, I agree with you that men, a lot of us judge ourselves by what type of title we hold
Mhm.
versus what kind of person we are. And that transition, when I got out of coaching, is when I had to have a transition in my head and my mind of, hey, stop looking at wins and losses, stop looking at different things. It's what kind of person you are, what kind of character
Right.
you have, and
That's
so
beautiful.
and that's the hard part, and we're getting away from that in athletics. So we're
That's
getting away from
beautiful. I
that
love
in
that.
yeah, in high school and college. It's like win now, do whatever it takes to win, and if you don't win, you're out. And so the character development and the caring about the kids is not there as much because they're worried about their jobs.
Well said. Well said. Listen, I want to take this to this point right now. And unless you have something else, and I promise this line of questioning, we can push back, but I feel like it's time to get into the nitty gritty of this. Look, we were watching this Aaron Hernandez story show last week. We have
American Sports Story.
American Sports Story. Ryan Murphy,
Ryan Murphy. It's an
written and
FX
directed.
show, but it is on Hulu.
And
on
it is
Wednesdays.
based off of the book for which the documentary does pull a lot of information. So from that aspect, it is accurate,
Correct.
based on the doc, right? But from a what happened type of situation, they inject a lot of things that I don't think that's fair, right? That you can't know.
That's Ryan Murphy in
Sure,
general.
absolutely,
He
100%.
just is
It's
very
more, I think,
dramatic.
exactly. But what I will say is that this last episode, not this week, but the week before, I think it comes out today, right?
Yes, it
Yeah.
does.
So last week's episode showed us Aaron getting ready for the college draft. Okay. Showed him getting ready for the college draft and him at Florida, right? Coming off the heels of losing a national championship that everybody thought he would, that they were going to easily walk away with. Aaron was a first round talent, without a doubt. Nobody on this earth can ever question whether that man had the ability to be taken first round. And when we saw him in the NFL, it was clear he is a first round talent. He dropped all the way to the fourth round because of the off the field stuff. Now, I've always known that off the field stuff matters, from Tim Tebow to the A&M guy. What was his name? Johnny Football?
Johnny Manziel.
These things matter. Tim Tebow probably shouldn't have even been drafted, let alone at the position he was, but because he was so good off the field, because people could trust him, because a coach could say, draft that guy, and he will be at the weight room at 5 a.m. and he will be here, and he will be there, and he will be a leader on this team. And you could trust him with that, right? With Aaron Hernandez, all the off the field stuff certainly hurt his stock. But to learn the process for which teams have interviews with kids, right? They're kids. They're in college. There was this part where they showed the Detroit Lions, and obviously this is probably not accurate in terms of what team, but they're asking him standard questions. Did you get along with your mom? Tell us about your dad. Your brother played football. Did you want to follow in his footsteps? Have you ever had a sexual relationship with a cat? And it's like, wait, what? And it's just to throw them off. It's just to see if they'll take the bait, right? We saw the Steelers and Cowboys game last night. Look at what happened when you lose the game and what's his name threw Jalen down with a face mask after the game's over out of frustration. Because up here, he is still working on building himself to be the player that leaves it on the field and doesn't let that bullshit get to him, right? How fair is it to not just criticize, but to hold these kids up at that stage in their careers and kind of play those kinds of mind games? Is it a fair thing because of the stock that you're putting into that kid and the investment that's good that the whole franchise and community is putting? Or is it also not fair to them because it's a situation where they are still kids and you're kind of baiting them, unfairly, and then using that as a precipice for determining how much money they get? Can you talk us through what that process is like and kind of react to some of the things I just said?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first off, I haven't watched the series. I did watch the Netflix special.
That's okay.
So I do have
Right.
a lot of background of kind of his story.
Absolutely.
And the process of all this is daunting. Nowadays is totally different than what it was when he went through it. And I say nowadays
Sure.
is different is because now they're getting paid in college, and that's created a whole nother monster.
That's
but it's
amazing.
helped.
Love that.
It's
for them.
helped the NFL because now we know what it. Okay, how are you going to react when you have money, right?
Yes.
Versus back then, it was like this kid has been dirt poor his whole life, and we're
Great
about
point.
to. It's like hitting the Mega Millions. We're about to give him $45 million on day one, and what is he going to do with it? Right.
Exactly.
So it's very, for the NFL teams, and being on both sides of it now, the NFL team, these are big investments. These are huge investments that they're making on these players. And yes, they've gotten through it. But if you look at Ricky Williams, you look at Vince Young, those were great talents in in college that didn't end up really making it in the pros. And it was because they didn't have the structure or didn't have the people around them like they did in college to help them. And so
Right.
the process is tough. I mean, you're going to make mistakes. We all make mistakes. We're young in college. But character does count, and it's starting to count less in the NFL. It's, hey, how fast are you? Hey, how strong
Right.
are you? How good are you? But character did, when you have a lot of red flags, NFL teams will start, and all it takes is one NFL team to really start talking negatively about you, and they all talk. And so it ends up getting out, and people are like, well, so you're not going to draft him first round or second round? Oh no, heck no, man. We're not taking a chance on that guy. Well, then neither are we. And then they see him on the board falling, and now everybody's thinking to themselves, well, I'm not going to take him. Are you going to take him? It finally gets to the point to where, hey, it gets to where it's, man, we're going to get a great athlete for crazy cheap, so we can risk it. And that's why he fell so far.
Got you.
And that's basically what they said in the show as well, was like, he just kept getting passed up. And then finally someone's like, well, he's definitely the best player that's here that could be drafted. We're just going to take a chance for cheap, and then we'll see how it goes. There was something else that Mario told me that was very interesting, is that the percentage of money that they pay to players is like abysmal compared to what the NFL teams actually make. So yes, they are making millions of dollars of investment, but they make quite a bit more money off of the players than they actually do pay them. So I like what you said about how character is not mattering so much anymore. It's really about how fast, because honestly, that's the job. You know what I mean?
Well, it is and it isn't, though.
But that's why you have clauses in contracts. That's why you have those certain things in contracts, so that when someone does break that clause, you can let them go. But to hold them to a specific standard, and let's be honest, the standard is white American Christian, that's not fair, because we're not all white American Christians, and we don't all have to fall under those same type of ideals.
Well,
and there are times where people's actions represent their culture and are looked down upon by, I guess, what people would consider more mainstream ethics.
Well, I think though, yeah, but
them.
No, of course. But, and Polo, please, I'll say this and you answer, because I obviously don't have the expertise in this. It's a situation where here you have a kid who has already proven how mentally tough he can be versus his peers, right? And so then you say, okay, well, look at this kid, right? And I'm going to use Polo for an example, right? Single parent home, one of the most dominant players that we had in Grant Middle School, led us to a city championship. High school standout player, gets 100% scholarship, right? So he's already proven that he is working at a level above his peers, right? But now I'm a coach and I want to draft him. I'm holding him up to Martin from Cowboys or Kelsey. Now I'm holding this 21-year-old kid to the standards of grown-ass men who have been a brand and a business for up to a decade sometimes, right? So Polo, is the trade-off at the end of the day enough to say, okay, well, these kids are going to become millionaires and they can and blah, blah, so we can kind of keep this whole thing structured in the way it is? Or is this a situation that you think has to change? And what has to change about it in terms of protecting the players, the collegiate players?
Absolutely. Well, you, as a collegiate player, you can't, until you declare for the draft, you cannot talk with agents. You cannot have any kind of conversations with NFL teams. This is all predecessor. So you have a short window. If you're getting recruited out of high school, think about it. You got a whole year at least, maybe even more. Sometimes you're getting recruited as far as a sophomore in high school. So you're developing these relationships with these coaches. You're going to see places. You're going to be able to ask questions. You're going to do all these things. Well, not in the NFL draft. So basically, and you hit it on the head when you said, this is a business. This ain't sports. Okay. When it gets to that level in the NFL, it's straight business. It's all about the dollar bill. And
when did you learn that? At what point did you learn that?
Well, we learned it when I had athletes at UTSA. We had a first overall draft pick, and to hear him, and we had a lot of NFL guys come out of our team, and I was recruiting these guys from California, Florida, Texas, and they were coming from crazy low income house kind of kids, and they're asking us about, like, Coach, I don't even know where to start. And I'm like, all right, calm down. So this is the process here. Let me teach you about what's going to happen. So you're going to declare for the draft. This is your area of where you're going to end up saying, okay, whether it's your junior year, if you want to come out, you got a high enough draft grade, great. Or not, it's your senior year, you're going to end up doing it. So you're going to go through a pro day and at our school, and basically there's going to be scouts there watching that pro day.
Wow.
You're going to do all your 40, you're going to run, you're going to do all these things. And then they're also going to give you a test. They give you this. They have a little, and I forget the name of what the test is called, but they give us this test, and we all take
like a written test.
A written test. And so you do all that. And then if you end up getting invited to the NFL draft, well, now you're a dude. Now you're really on the radar to get drafted, and that's something.
Wait, you mean the draft or the combine?
The combine.
Combine. Okay.
So then
you're at the combine.
Yeah, now you're at the combine, and you're a dude, and you're one of. So a couple of guys that I played with in college ended up getting offered to go to the combine. So
does anybody get offered to go to the combine? Real quick.
Say that
like
again,
if you're what I'm trying to ask is, so if you are invited to the combine, is it like 100% you're going to get drafted?
No, it's not 100%.
Okay.
I would give it 80-20.
Okay, perfect.
Because you could also, you're good. You could
totally
have a bad day. You go to the draft and you're a tweener and you run a real bad 40. You have a bad bench day. You have a bad whatever it is, vertical, and it can kill you. And there's certain guys that will skip the combine because they think they have a high enough grade where they're not going to mess around with it. Oh, they can only hurt themselves for the draft. They can't help you.
That's a great point you just made, because I would like to get to mix this in there, right, and continue. I'm sorry to interrupt your flow there, but there was this part on the Aaron Hernandez show, and we don't know how much of this is true, but I'm sure things like this happen all the time. So Aaron tweaks his back, right, like I think 48 hours before the combine, and when he does that, he goes into the trainer, right, gets worked on a little bit, obviously just part of the plan. Well, it ends up coming out, and I know this is factually true based on some of the research I've done and talking to a friend of mine who used to cover the NFL, or the college at that point. He did really bad on those written scores, and I forgot what that test is called. I think it starts, was it like a Macaulay test or
Lipman, it's
something like that? Yes.
I remember looking it up on my phone.
I know, me
it's
too.
Over there, so
it's
I
over
don't
there
know.
somewhere. So I remember that happening, and so then his agent finds out. Okay, his agent finds out how poorly he did on the test. Immediately goes to the trainer room where Aaron is gearing up to run his 40, and pulls him and says, "You're not running your 40."
It's the Wonderlick. Sorry,
Wonderlick. Thank
the
you.
Wonderlick. There it is.
And so he says to himself, or he says to his agent, what the F do you mean I'm not running? Yes, I am running. I am running. What are you talking about? The 40 is what's going to get me drafted. What are you talking about? Of course I'm running it. And he tells him, listen, you did poorly. You did worse on the test than we were hoping. And if you go out there and you run even a 0.001 second slower, that is going to have a huge impact. But if we could just say that your back's hurt, blah, 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 and Aaron and the agent, they go at it and all that. So I ask you, how much in control are the kids at that point?
They're not.
By the time they get to the combine, who is making the decisions and who actually has that kid's best interest at heart? Is it fair to say that they don't have a family member with them, that the Sharks are just circling?
Well, they do, but the family member is not going to outweigh the agent. The agent, and especially
if they're not alive, right?
Yeah, and that agent is your ticket to the NFL. And so I had to give up more of my contract to get a better agent when I was coming out of college because I wanted the best. I mean, these guys are promoters, and they're going to promote you, and they're going to, and you're paying for their expertise. And so that's where it kind of gets, you got to listen to your agent, and these guys know it. And it's a dirty business. They're used car sales, most of them, anyways. Right. I won't lump them all in there, but I mean, it's all about the dollar bills. It's all about,
and
sad.
We saw that during the show as well, because Aaron has all of these agents that are like proposing to him and all. They're like, you're going to be
a first round. You're going to do this. You're going to get a $10 million signing bonus, and breaking records.
The agent that actually he ends up using tells him, no, you're going to be a fourth round because of what's going on outside.
He was real with them. He kept it real with them. He kept it real with them.
Yeah. No. And that was crazy.
What do you think the percentage of lies that a college player, after leaving and declaring for the draft, what are the amount of lies percentage wise that he's hearing? I mean, is he hearing like 10% of the truth every day and the rest are lies? I mean, what is that point like? I mean,
no, it's not necessarily, but they're basically fitting you in a mold that sometimes you're not supposed to be in. And that's it. And so they're like, look, I've done this with 100 athletes. That's great, but I'm not those athletes. Yeah, I get it. But this is the successful thing, and just do what I'm telling you to do. And they coach these guys up because you're going to have those interviews with those NFL teams, and they're going to call you. And just like a lawyer talks with his client on how they get up there and how they're going to get cross-examined, is the same thing. How these guys are going to coach their client to, when he goes to the Cowboys, what's the proper thing to say when they ask you about why you got in trouble here or why you do that. You're getting coached by these guys and getting you ready to say the right things in order to get the right draft pick, in order to get your money.
It's like basically making you press ready, essentially.
That's it. It really is.
Just kind of finding all the caveats to what you've done, and let's make them look nice. Let's package them really pretty and see how it goes.
Well said. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You have a question or anything, real quick? I thought, I didn't know if you wanted to jump in. Okay,
you just cut me off. That's fine.
I'm sorry about that, baby.
It's a problem.
Listen, the issue is that I'm excited to be able to have somebody who can really, break this down for us. And as you're talking, Polo, I'm learning things at the same time, and my head is just like flooded with questions. Look, I'm not going to sit here and put this on your back and say, hey, what are the answers? Give us a solution. Obviously that's unfair at this point, but do you think that there's any coming back from the money aspect of this? I mean, like, look, college is different from today than it was, right? They have the licensing issues that they had back when you were playing. I mean, does it bother you at all that, you can't be, you can't rewind time and be on the NCAA 2K game? Like, you know,
Well,
you couldn't.
100%. 100%.
And how do we make that fair to you and the millions of people out there? Because you're not, let's be honest, you are not part of the higher percentage of people that go football players that leave college, right? You are in a very small percent of people who are successful and, you know, without football and aside from football, you know what I mean? Like, that's a big deal. I mean, your accomplishments in the game are huge, but the accomplishment you're doing right now, breaking that cycle, that's even bigger to me. So when I look at it and I say, well, here you are, and you were given this, you know, parenting that absolutely has helped you to get to where you are, you're still owed, man. You're still owed. And a lot of people that are poor right now are as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's the thing. So 10% of high school athletes get to play collegiate sports. 1% gets to play Division I sports.
Wow.
And then after that, you look at all those Division I athletes, 1% of those Division I athletes get to play in the NFL. They are going to get drafted and all that stuff. I mean, these are very, very little, you know, minute numbers. And so you got to look at it all like that. Yes, if I could rewind it, and I think about it a lot. I think about it probably more than I should have. How much, one, would I have stayed at New Mexico State University, because I played a lot my freshman year, and I had game tape. And then I started my sophomore year. Well, after those 2 years, I had enough tape. I would have gone and said, hey, who's going to pay me? Because I was from a low income home. I mean, period. And so I needed the money. We needed as much money as we could get. So it is now who can pay me. And I would have been able to help my father, been able to help myself if I was playing in today's league, because I know I would have been able to make some type of money. And so, and that's huge, right? That's huge. But more than anything, the way we need to fix it, and these kids won, it's a Wild West. The NCAA, we always made them out to be the devil, which that's kind of how we looked at them. We looked at them as the big bad wolf, and they were never there to help athletes. Well, so now they let go, and they gave all the rules back and said, all right, free for all. Now it's the Wild West. And now everybody's saying, well, hey, hold on. We gotta get a hold of this. This is crazy. This is wild. And they're saying, hey, you wanted no rules. Now there's no rules. What's wrong? They want this thing to fall on their face. They want a young freshman, sophomore driving in his Lambo get killed in Austin, Texas, so that they can see, oh, you want us back? You want us to go put rules back on this thing? You want us to be, oh, now we're not the big bad wolf. Now we're the principal.
That's crazy.
Wow.
That sounds like a freaking abusive parent.
It does. It sounds like a boyfriend who is like
mistakes. I told you that was going to happen. Like,
it's like a boyfriend who complains about everything you do, and then is like, fine, go out with the girls. And she calls and she's like, oh, we ran out of gas. And he's like, take the bus. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's fucked up. You're trying to make them dependent on you by letting these kids and the league go through the motions, so where they know the pitfalls, right? You don't for sure. You're not protecting anyone by letting people who have never had money and come from a place that never had money, and then all of a sudden putting all this pressure on their back while they're playing football. That's the other part about this, man. Look, I was never going to play football more than, you know, middle school. I'm 5'6", you know, it was never a thing. But the one thing I take from football is understanding what it's like to work hard and what it's like to prepare for an obstacle, right? Yeah. So when you have an obstacle on Saturday or Sunday, if you're a pro, it sounds to me like there's even more obstacles Monday through Friday. You know what I'm saying? Like, forget classes, forget all of that. Can you tell us how, just kind of break down real quick the history for any of our audience that isn't familiar with the transition for pay to play? So when you were playing, up until what time, what year did the pay for play stuff start happening?
So it just happened. I know the exact year, but it just happened about a few years ago. I mean, this is,
I remember hearing about
3 years. Yeah, 3 years, maybe 4. And so it's right after the pandemic, or right after all that stuff, is when all this thing started kind of happening.
And now you are a real estate agent right now, and you work within the Texas area. What areas do you cover, by the way?
So we cover all of San Antonio, Austin, Corpus Christi, basically almost anywhere you need. I have a small team, and I have a good friend of mine, Kevin Mandel. He's down in Corpus. He's my he's my Corpus agent. And then I have my right-hand person here in San Antonio, Megan, who does a great job for us. And so we're kind of encompassing.
You're talking about Brian's brother?
Yeah, he's part of my
That's so
team.
awesome. You know, I had Mr. Mandel on sitting right here in this chair.
Really?
Yeah, back in the spring when he was running. He had just lost against the incumbent. And I thought he ran a great campaign. I think that, the politics and what they are prevented him from winning. But I'll tell you what, I got to speak to him, and I would vote for him. I would 100% vote for him. He is a guy who I feel like has country over party, and that to me sounds as good as anything these days. But that said, I want to ask you a two-part questions. One, does the time of coaching and playing help you in your professional career as you're managing different players? And what point did you stop coaching? And why, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so definitely coaching's helped me just in all facets. So I used to tell people, and players used to tell me all the time, why do you coach me different than you coach so-and-so? I said, because all y'all have a fuse box that I need to open up, and it's not labeled for me. And I need to hit fuses and figure out what light goes to what and what motivates you.
That's
So
beautiful.
some people, respond to getting yelled at. Some people don't. Some people respond to tough coaching. Some don't. And so I have to figure out what turns your lights on. And once I do, I'm going to ride that home. And I've used that in real estate, same thing with clients, but also, everything. It's just outworking everybody. We always in real estate, we talk about 10% of agents sell 90% of the real estate because we're just out everybody. And so that's kind of how we go with it. But, it's unique. And no matter what you do, you play collegiate sports, you can be successful at whatever you want to because you just know how to put the work in and day out.
Sure.
You're not gonna see the fruits of your labor until a long while, until the season starts or until all those things, and things don't end up working out the way you think sometimes, and you got to bounce back from it. And that's where the transfer portal, and that's where all this stuff right now is going on. We're making less strong men and women out there in collegiate once they graduate, because we're saying, hey, if things aren't working out right now at your school, go to the next school. And if they don't work out there, awesome, go to the next school. And if they don't work, so what do you think what are we teaching them about when marriage gets tough?
What are we teaching them about
what a point. What a point.
Correct. You're teaching them
what a point,
what's
dude.
the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? Run to this, run to that. That university looks good. And so it's setting the wrong mindset with these guys. I like the
setting them up for failure.
Yeah, it's setting up for. I like the transfer portal. I think it should at least give you one good transfer. Hey, you know what? It didn't work out at this, because it is a big decision. And when I was going on, I went on trips all over the country, and I didn't know where I was going to go. We didn't have enough money to go to all the universities that I wanted to go to that were inviting us, because we just didn't have the money to get to them. Michigan, Nebraska, all these places, and my dad's like, I don't have the funds to take you there. So we had to stay local. We had to go to Baylor. We had to go to A&M. We had to go to Texas, because those were the ones that were close. And so, when you go there, and then you have to put on a show for these people. But nowadays it's different. Now it's, hey, go to a university. You don't like it, go somewhere else. You don't like that place, go somewhere else. And it's also about the money. It's, hey, who's going to pay me the most? And so we're setting these kids up for failure, because they're going to think about making the left tackle for UT makes $1 million. The running back makes $1 million a year. 18 years old, 19 starters. Quarterback, I don't know how much Manning's making, but he's making crazy.
And he came in as the backup.
Yeah, so he's making crazy money. But what are we doing when those kids don't make? So we graduate from college, they got a degree, they don't make it to the NFL, and their first job is going to pay them $100,000 a year. That's a great salary. But to them, I'm making $1 million a year. This is nothing, right? So we have to put rules on that, and we have to cap that stuff. And we have to take care of old athletes that busted their tail. So, the great thing about the NFL is if you make your pension, you graduate, you make your pension and you leave and retire, your medical bills are paid for the most part. You got a small window.
That's amazing.
But us as NCAA, I was a 4-year contributor, 3-year starter. I've had 2 back surgeries, a knee surgery, tons of shoulder issues, nothing. I've paid for my scholarship. My free scholarship, I've paid in medical bills.
Paid for it.
As
That's
you know,
so
in my time.
sad.
That's so sad, dude. That's
And
so fucked up.
I tell people now that left tackle's making $1 million a year. I said, nah, he can make $100,000 a year, and the rest of it needs to be put in a bank account. But also, we have to start skimming that stuff for medical bills to put in for NCAA players that don't make it to the NFL, because we still have a ton of medical bills.
And you know, you're saying all this, and it makes me think. I did a paper recently for school, and I was doing some different research on different programs, and this was for the church, but it kind of made me think of, you know, how this could be used as far as the what is it, NCAA? NCAA. So essentially, this was a mentor that would give the family and the kids, you know, financial, not advice, but, you know, financial guidance, give them a mental health help. They were basically essentially a mentor to help them transition through this program and get them to the other side, whether they needed a home, whether they were on the you know, the millions of things that we deal with as people. People like to kind of like, people that have things like to compartmentalize what people that don't have things
Well
don't
said.
have.
Well said.
You know what I mean? But it's such a bigger issue than that. So, you know, like you were saying, like with this young kid, you know, he gets in his Lambo and he gets in a wreck, and they're basically banking on that. It would be so much more cost effective and smarter to just initiate a mentorship program. You know, in the long run, teaching these kids exactly what you're saying, how to manage their money, because if they don't set them up for the actual expectation that you may not make it to the NFL. You may fail. You may hurt your knee.
Well said.
You may need surgeries. You may actually need to finish college and use that degree instead of your physical prowess. You know what I mean? So
100%.
what do you think about like a mentorship program like that for these young athletes and their families, by the way?
It has to be. I mean, you have to start this stuff, because again, the coaches, they always say, well, why isn't the coaches doing all this stuff? They can't. Now there's restricted hours, right? You can only be with a kid for a certain amount of time. You can only have them up at the facilities at a certain amount of time. And so you're trying to win, because they're trying not to get fired. So they don't have the time to do all this extra mentoring. And let's talk about what it is to be a man. Let's talk about what it is to manage your money. And I actually still go and talk with the UTSA football coaches. We have great talks. But
that's beautiful.
That is.
Think about this. So these new kids, they're coming into all this money, right? They don't have a CPA. So your quarterback's going to get picked up in 3 years, the starting quarterback, for tax evasion. They don't have anybody looking at these NLI contracts for these kids. It's their parents looking these things over. And so they're like, oh, yeah, sure. Okay. You want them for 10 years for this? Sure. I guess.
And
whatever.
someone from the college being like, yeah, just sign that. It all works out. You don't have to read it. Right.
Correct. And so, like, I tell every university now is going to have a CPA on full-time staff looking at these kids, making sure that they're filing their taxes. They need to have an actual agent overlooking all these NLI contracts. You have got to have mental health. Mental health is more prevalent now than it ever has been. And I think social media has a lot to do with it.
Right.
Well said.
Our minds, I've always said our minds are only meant to digest so much bad stuff.
Yeah.
Think about, like, back in the day, our parents, because, you know, when TV came around, you started digesting a whole lot more. But before that, I mean, you maybe saw one or two accidents in your life. You maybe saw, like, so our minds are just not meant to just take on bad news after bad news. And nowadays we can't get away from it, right? Our cell phone we're in notification hell, because we're just constantly getting updates. There's a shooting here. Hey, there's a hurricane just hit and a whole bunch of people died. Hey, like, it's just.
Hey, another country's at war.
Correct. It just weighs on you. It weighs. I mean,
it does.
It
really does.
You have to, like, try to zone in and try to forget. And people used to ask me, like, hey, when you played at Nebraska, or you played at Colorado, you played at Auburn, played at all these huge universities, and they're like, was it intimidating? Was it crazy? I said, you know, surprisingly, when you step on a field, it's just like the same field you stepped on when you're in middle school, Grant Middle School.
Is that true, really?
Like, because once that first hit happens, and once you're hey, babe, I'm back at it. This is what I've been doing. I know.
You don't see anything else. You're focused.
It's almost like body, what's the word?
Disassociation.
You're not even like body association.
Yes.
So it's like it go through this, and then your mind
go in
just
autopilot.
It just
autopilot.
clicks. It does
Yes.
autopilot. Like I remember putting my
Very
hand
interesting.
down at Auburn. We drove the very first drive at Auburn University all the way down to score. And when we were on the 3-yard line, it was third and whatever, and the crowd was so loud that when you put your hand on the ground, you could feel the earth moving.
Wow, that's awesome.
Wow.
But
Wow.
you're
What a
just
cool
in the
experience.
zone. You're just like you're ready to go. This is
Dude,
what
that
you're meant to
sounds
do.
so cool. That sounds so cool. Listen, we have you for a few more minutes. I want to thank you for all the time that you've given us. Real quick, you know, a lot of Texas people listen to the show. I have a fairly significant Texas audience. Where could they reach you if they are in the market for housing right now?
Yeah, for sure. You can go to phyllisbrowning.com. You can get my profile, my cell phone number, all my emails on there. You can just literally Google search me, Polo Guterres,
Awesome.
and you can get all that info. Love to help you out. We do commercial real estate. We do residential real estate. We're starting to branch out in farm and ranch real estate, and so
Nice.
we're able to do anything again. And eventually, we're going to have an agent in Houston. We'll have an agent in Dallas and an agent in Fort Worth. And so basically, we're going to cover you all throughout the corridor. And just, hey, if you're moving with any of those areas,
Moving
let us
anywhere in
know.
Texas, we got you.
Correct.
But is it hard to sell houses in witness protection? No, I'm just kidding. It got dark. I was like, oh man.
I know, dude. I know. I just my lights. And I'm battling with it. It was beautiful when the sun was coming in.
No, it's okay. It was weird because, you know, it looked like you had a ring light on at first, and then I was like, oh, it went dark.
Yeah.
And so yeah, no, that's okay. I was just thinking, you know, you've just told too much truth to be able to put your face out there now. No, I'm just kidding.
No doubt.
That does lead me to the question I want to ask you though. Is there a chance you ever go back to coaching? And I ask you that because I have a more important question I want to ask you.
Yeah, you asked why I didn't get out or why I got out. So the reason I got out of college is because I saw the way it was going. So these guys now are recruiting year round. You're begging kids to stay. Not only are you recruiting new kids, but you're recruiting your kids to have to stay there. Like they're coming in and they're like, Coach, hey, University of Miami's offering me $500,000. God, you're my starting running back. I need to keep you somehow, some way. So I saw the way college was going, and I was getting married, and I was going to start a family, and I was like, man, I don't want to deal with this. So I thought I could go to high school and have more time on my hands in high school, and it wasn't even close. I was a head coach.
Really?
I was a head coach and administrator at TMI, and so you're at every sporting event. You're at every single thing. It doesn't matter what it is. And so then you're meeting with every parent, from a JV parent to a freshman parent to varsity parent.
That's
And
crazy.
so, and then you're running the summer program. Like in college, at least we had our summers off somewhat, and we had our strength and conditioning program running all that. And so that wasn't the case. And now in high school, you do everything. And so you don't have much time off. And so I was like, I'm not becoming a millionaire doing this. I love it, but and I know it's God's work, and I'm serving our community, but I'm not serving. We're great fathers to other people's kids in coaching, but we're horrible fathers to our own kids because we're never around. And so I knew my dad was a great dad, and he was present and he was there. And if it wasn't for him, I don't know what I would have done. And so I wanted to give my kids the same opportunity that my father gave me. And sometimes it's just being present. And so that's the reason I got out of coaching. And I got into real estate. And so, and it's been a blessing. And I told God, I said, hey, if this is where you want me to be, make me get shot out of a cannon. And I said, and if it's not, let me fall on my face super fast in real estate so I can go on to the next thing. And put me where you want me to be. Put me where you want. And so after my first year of real estate, broke all kinds of records, was rookie of the year, was all these things in San Antonio, newcomer of the year. And I said, well, there you go, God. Thank you. You put me where you want me to be. And
that's
beautiful, man.
We love that.
So, that's so beautiful. Listen, I asked you the question. Now I feel bad about asking the second question.
Go for it. No, dude.
Listen, look, I think that when I was a kid, there was things that was said. There was things that were said, right? If you're gonna play flag football, that makes you the P word. You know, if you don't play tackle football when you're 5 years old, you know, you're a B word. And I bought into all that as a kid. You know, I bought into it. So I played football because that's what you did at 7th grade, or you were a B word, right? And then I got the grace to be able to go to high school and, you know, have that whole, focus on this sport, blah, blah, and hide behind that. when I just knew I was undersized for football. Now today we know a little more about CTE. We know a little bit more about how to protect and the risks of head injuries and head trauma to kids. Without, you don't have to get like personal in terms of like
No,
talking about your actual
I
child,
will. I
but
will.
are you gonna, you have a boy at some point and he's young. Are you going to allow him to play tackle football? And do you believe that the narrative today that kids should be playing tackle football at a certain age needs to be redirected to the point that tackle football should be played, when the brain develops further? Just tell me what your
Correct.
ideas on that are.
Correct. And so, well, yeah, I don't think they need to be playing tackle football until middle school. I think you can play, and people, the NFL would crucify me, right? Because they love that little peewee football and all that stuff. Your body's not developed. Your neck muscles aren't developed. You need to be, your shoulder muscles aren't developed to get hit like that. I don't believe in Little League, Friday Night Tykes, all that stuff. I think all that's horrible. The kids are not meant, and that at that age, there's so much difference in weight, height, all that stuff. I mean, certain kids are just bigger than other kids. And so go out, play flag football, go do all those things. I think it's all great. And so I was one of the first ones, even in our high school, when I started coaching high school, to start wearing those Guardian caps. I was one of the first, and they did a huge interview with us and like, why are you doing this and all that stuff? I was to protect our athletes because nobody ever protected us. I literally went through so many injuries in high school. I remember the entire field flipping upside down, and then it took about maybe 30 seconds, and it came back right. And I still played. That was part of it. I got knocked out in college cold versus University of Hawaii on ESPN, and like a boxer, my whole body was shaking, stiffed up, was out. I played the next week because there was no such thing as a protocol. There was none of that stuff. And so we have got to take care of our kids. And I tell, you think you're invincible, right? You think you're invincible as a young man. And so I push my body to the limits, and I always like, I'm not, you hurt or you injured, I'm fine. And I'm just pushing myself. And now I'm paying for it. And so if my son wants to play football, he's more than welcome to, and I'll push him just like my dad pushed him. But I'm going to educate him on how to take care of your body, because that's the issue. Is like I wake up every day in pain, and it has to do, I got all these trophies and all this stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm nervous that I'm going to be in a wheelchair at 60 years old.
Oh my gosh.
And so, I've had enough back surgeries and things aren't, and this crazy thing about the back is they go in and they take stuff off, but they don't have anything to truly fix your back right? They just can go in there and they shave things off, or they try to put rods in there. They try to do all that stuff, but it doesn't help you. And so I want my son to make sure he's educated on what's the difference between being hurt or injured and taking care of your head. I'm huge on the CTE. Some players think if you got to watch the Vince McMahon thing and you hear Stone Cold Steve Austin say, I think all this is just bull, and all that. No, it's not. No, it's not. It ain't bull. We're not meant to take those kind of hits. And you see it. You can see it in all the different specials. And it takes longer on certain deals. But O&D linemen, we're constantly hitting our helmets. If you look at my old high school helmet, I mean, all the paint is off of that forehead. If you look at my ex-college helmet, same thing. All the paint is off of this area because you're taking so many impacts. And so I've always told my wife, if I ever pass away young, I know it's grim to think about it. I said, but if I ever pass away young, I want you to donate my brain to CTE.
Wow,
And
dude, that's huge.
Crazy thing
seriously.
is in that Aaron Hernandez documentary, they, after they donated his brain and they looked at it afterwards, after he passed, and they saw all the damage that was done to his prefrontal cortex, which is the area of your brain that makes decisions, and also the area of your brain that's not fully developed until you're 25. He was 23 when all this stuff happened, and that part of his brain was so damaged.
Excellent point.
I think that they compared his brain to that of someone that has like a lot of behavioral issues, like a sociopath or someone like that, when you compared it side by side. And that's not how his brain was when he was young, but that came from those constant hits all the time, and it changes your brain.
That was a beautifully well articulated point. And I was going to say something similar. I'm not. In fact, I'm just going to use my time to tell you, Polo, how brave I think you are and how much respect I have for you, for not everything. I mean, yes, obviously for everything you've accomplished in sports, there's still this part of me that very much respects, athletes and everything, because I tried, but I respect you for the honesty that you have the balls to sit here and say, knowing everything football's given you. And some guys feel like, oh, football gave me so much, I can't say this or I can't say that. That's bullshit. Football didn't give you shit. You worked your butt off because of the people that had the fortitude or the love to invest in you, right? And so for you to be as honest as you are about this stuff and say the things you've said, and the fact that you're committing already to that, knowing how young you are and knowing the great shape I'm sure you're still in, it's man, it's hard.
admirable.
It's admirable, and it's hard to really to say into words, because like I feel like there's gonna be like a lot of people that are gonna be watching and be like, yeah, what's the big deal? I mean, it's like donating your organs, you're gone. That's not it
It's
at
not.
all. You have to understand what that commitment is like, and how many people out there that Polo has been around or met and worked with in the field of sports or athleticism that could be upset by that, but
Yeah, for
by what
sure.
he just said, and feel, hurt or whatever. And the fact is that for Polo to do this and make that declaration, wow, just the balls and the bravery of that.
There's definitely a pride to take in that, and also a pride in how you're going to be raising your children as far as sports go. Like, that's breaking generational trauma.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Well
And
said.
that's a person that I can admire above anything else. I don't care if at the and you can't, you have to go to the food pantry to feed your kids, but you provide them love and support and you teach them. Like, at the end of the day, that's a hero.
Absolutely.
Someone that's willing to break the chains that have been placed on, people. And so I really commend you for that. That's a very beautiful and admirable thing that you're
Well, I
doing.
appreciate it. I just my thing with my son is he's not going to have to feel like he has to make it in sports to pay for his college or to go to
Beautiful.
the NFL. To now I've been able to, my body, I sacrificed my body, my mind, and all that so that he could have a better life. So now he can just go to college if he wants to, or he can do the things that. And so it's exactly what y'all are talking about, of just changing that mindset or changing that family lineage to be able to do multiple things now. I mean, it was
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to just talk about one last thing before we let you go. Before that, I do have a very, very serious and important live chat that just came through. This is from Captain Bird. Says, guy in the Simpsons shirt looks like a sexy Mexican Kit Harington. Thank you for that comment.
That was
I appreciate
very
your
serious.
bravery for saying your truth and speaking your truth. Thank you. I did add the sexy, so as a journalist I shouldn't do that. But I'll take Mexican Kid Harrington all day. I'll take Mexican Kid Harrington all day. Listen, okay, I left this for the last, and honestly I feel really bad because I wanted to talk to you in the green room when we were on before we went live to preface this. But if you don't want to talk about this, man, we don't have to. Okay.
We already start Aaron Hernandez, or just sort of, hey.
This is Aaron Hernandez territory. It is. Listen, when we saw this last episode and the episode before, it was very clear that, he faced a lot of scrutiny, and there was this idea that he felt like he had to be with Tim Tebow and push this narrative and all these things. And while I think that going to church and following Tim Tebow's, model is a very good idea for anyone in terms of working hard to get to where you're at.
Right.
I think the pressure he might have felt came from a place of, I don't want to say like racism or anything like that, but I think he felt like out of place.
Well, it's kind of what I went back to earlier.
Absolutely,
in the very
100%.
beginning, like the model for
Sure.
what is morally sound.
But that's not the same thing. In like, he was dealing with that in Florida, but they're not dealing with that in Pitt. You know what I mean? They're not dealing with that at UT. That was a specific situation to him. And I'm going to use your point and use it for something personal now. listen, we went to school together. We played together a little bit. And during that time, I know that I remember a lot of the locker room stuff that had to deal with, look, there's always going to be some sort of misogyny when a group of men get together. I don't think it's intentful. I don't think that it's hurtful. I think that it's just ingrained into our nature as men, but there are a lot of other aspects that take place in the locker room that have to deal with racism and politics, and they're not outwardly expressed, right? Growing up playing baseball, even in a majority Hispanic town, I've been called beaner. I've been called wetback, and it was in jest, right? It was a joke. And I might have even returned fire. And by the way, I'm a lot more of a dick. You know what I mean? So I never let that go without, making sure I could try to hurt somebody's feelings. And that was just my nature, right? When I see Aaron Hernandez's story, even though I don't agree with how Hulu's fully depicted it, I see a man who is struggling with his honesty. And I feel like maybe his honesty was being pushed down more because of the overly suggestive nature of locker rooms. When I'm 14, 15, 16, there is nothing about a locker room that offends me. There's nothing about a locker room that can't offend me. Now I'm close to 40. And I feel like if my son or daughter was having to hear the same things I heard in 2001, 2002, 2004, I don't know if I'd want them in that. Even if they're good at softball or tennis or football or any of those things, I don't know if that's the aspect I wanted. Can you talk about that to a degree? And can you tell us about your time as a coach and what are locker rooms like today? Because I think kids are getting more progressive in the sense that they care more about people. They're not as overtly harassing, I guess, today. Sure. And so I'm curious as to what you have to offer in that subject.
Well, so locker rooms are different nowadays because like the locker room used to be the one place that nothing could penetrate that locker room. If your locker room was close, it was always going to be close and it was tight knit. That's no longer the case. Social media is in your locker room and it divides locker rooms now. I got to see it. And so it's all, it's all kinds of crazy stuff now that has penetrated the locker room. And it's sad, but it is what it is. And you talk about you're scared for your children. I mean, we're all scared, but we always got to prepare the children for the path, not the path for the children.
Damn,
you gotta make tough individuals.
Quote.
You gotta make tough individuals because life is tough.
For sure.
I don't care what it is. Life's and you were talking about racism. Racism is still alive and well in America.
Absolutely.
What anybody says. And so it's not a majority, it's a minority, but it is. And
they're vocal. They're a very vocal minority.
100%. And so, and our kids are growing up in a different era and things are always on camera. Think about if we had handheld cameras in those locker rooms.
Dude, I don't think I'd be here today.
Correct.
I don't think I'd be canceled. I would have been canceled at 15.
Correct. And so that stuff, right? That stuff that your life can be destroyed at 14, 15, 16 years old with these cameras. And literally and we never had to worry about that. And so that's the different thing. And your wife being in nothing, I'll say this about Aaron Hernandez. What he did, there's no excuse for what he did. There's no excuse. I don't care CTE. I don't care all that stuff, whatever it is. But your wife's in mental health. And so what happens to you from 0 to 12 years old, golly, do you hold on to that all the way till you die or 80?
Yeah.
And so his dad dying, then his mom messing around with his cousin's freaking husband and took him and all. There's a lot of dynamic, and that brain's being developed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he had his sexuality that he was dealing with, and then he had, then he's putting on top of that. He's 16 years old. He's smoking dope and putting chemicals in his body that's changing your body. Your mind's
changing him forever.
And then you keep going down that path. And he kept using drugs in college, and he kept doing all that stuff. And then, so there was a lot of trauma there, and then it just never got handled, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it doesn't matter what you do, you never deal with that trauma. it's gonna come to surface eventually.
It's exactly. It comes out whether you want it to or not. It's going to come out in some way, shape, or form. Whether that be in pain in your body, it definitely comes out in your actions. The way that you treat people, like that trauma is going to surface. And whether you're aware of it or not, just like you said, whether you realize that you're hurting other people or whether you don't realize it, that is the way that you treat people is a direct effect of direct reflection of how you feel about yourself. You know what I mean? So that trauma is going to come out any way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Listen, man, that's coming up on the time that, you promised us. And I want to say, first of all, I was already very grateful for you taking the time. Anytime I ask anyone to be a guest, I always just assume they're going to say no. I always assume that I have to pitch them a little bit. Just because the nature of media and things like that, it can be, and listen, I've been guilty as a journalist over the last 10 years. I've been guilty of asking questions that shouldn't have been asked at that point, right? I've been guilty of trying to get people. Today I'm trying to do something different, and the way that you participated today, I can't be any more grateful, honestly, to you to come on here and be as honest as you are in an era of social media, in an era of actual media that is nothing but lies and innuendos and things that are meant to divide us. Here you are speaking your truth and seeing how much it aligns with the facts. Dude, I'm so fucking proud of you. I'm so proud of the fucking man that you became. And I just hope you'll come back again, because
Absolutely.
After this, I don't even want to. It's not that I don't want to talk about you, talk about sports with you. I'd love to, but I want to know some other stuff that you think now. I really do.
You like movies and TV. If you'd
Let's
like
do
to
it.
have a guest
Let's
spot,
do it.
you come on. Oh, awesome.
Let's do it.
I love
Tell
it.
tell us how stupid people are, and the Joker 2 was great. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I just actually saw that today.
Oh, you did? Really?
I don't know what I just watched, guys. I was like, what the hell was that? The ending was the only good part.
Did you like
the
first one, though?
I did. I
Yeah,
did
me
like
too.
the first one.
Me too.
And the second one, I literally looked around. There was only 7 people in the theater today, and I looked around and I was like, what the hell did we just watch? And they were like, yeah, I don't know either. And I'm like, yeah, what was going on there? So, no, I love movies. I'm a movie buff. I try to watch shows. But things have gotten weird, man. Everything's gotten weirder, but it's that one I didn't understand at all. I didn't get it. And,
it's definitely very nuanced. It definitely has a lot of hidden things in there. There's a lot of mental things. It's one that I think that you have to watch more than once to definitely understand everything that's trying to be said inside the movie.
Absolutely.
100%.
Listen, do you want to give out one last time your socials and how people can contact you if they're in the market? If you're in Texas and you're looking for housing, contact Polo Gutierrez. Where at?
Yeah, so you can contact me on my cell phone. It's 210-464-4521. You can also go to Phyllis Browning's website. You can get all my bio, my information there, my email, you name it. And so just reach out to us. We'd love to help you out. Like I said, my tagline on people is, people trusted me with their kids for 13 years. You can trust me with your home, right?
That's
beautiful.
It's one of those
great tagline.
So it's one of those. But I appreciate y'all coming, letting me come on. And
great meeting.
Of course.
Yeah. I'd love to talk more sports. I really want to talk college sports, because and how this new NLI deal is there's just so many monsters there.
You've really opened my eyes, at least as far as what's going on, and giving me your narrative feels authentic. Doesn't feel like you're trying to. I mean, like, you wouldn't have any agenda anyway, doing the job you're doing today. So everyone should be able to trust you on that basis alone. But your words are authentic. And today that feels like one of the least available commodities in the world, honesty and authenticity. And so I appreciate you filling the show with nothing but that today. Thank you, brother. And
thank you so much. We appreciate
I definitely going to hit you back up to come through again.
I'll have better lighting next time. So I didn't realize, like, it was beautiful at the beginning, and then all of a sudden when that sunset, I was like,
oh, dude, that the helmets and everything in the background, that is like just awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the jersey in the back. Shout out you 65. Keep doing what you're doing, man. I'm super proud of you. Seriously.
Appreciate it, brother. I appreciate y'all, and good luck with the new show, and I hope it freaking
Thank you.
blows up. I hope we're looking
Appreciate
at
it,
10
man.
years down the road, and we're still doing it. So
Hell
I
yeah,
hope
that'd be
so.
great,
Thank
man.
you so much.
Awesome.
We
We'll see you
welcome.
later, Polo. Appreciate it. That
Bye.
was Polo Gutierrez, former hold on, wait. Kick from studio. Former football player, coach, and just all around really good guy,
He was
man.
awesome.
He
Loved
was
him.
such a good guest.
He was. Loved it.
Listen, it's time for you and I to get into the crux
Yes.
of it. I
Yeah,
think we start with Aaron Hernandez because
'Cause we're already there a
We're
little
already
bit,
there.
right?
Yeah. So right now, what we have on tap for you guys, we're going to talk about Aaron Hernandez, and we're going to talk about Joker 2 as well. Now, you can call in the link. I'm going to put it in the live chat on YouTube. I'll put it on Twitch, and I will put it on IG as well. If you're listening live and you want to call in to talk about anything related to what we're talking about, and you want to talk about anything, any other show or documentary or movie that you're watching, you want to put us up on it, please do so. We are definitely going to do that. And by the way, we have a lot of plans for this show. We're going to do like snack reviews and different kind of stuff, kind of mix it up. But ultimately, getting started with the Aaron Hernandez stuff. This is a Ryan Murphy documentary. Direct, and he wrote, right?
I believe so, but let me double check.
And the cast has been
okay.
But let's talk about Aaron Hernandez casting.
Okay. So first of all, as a girl in her 20s that did not get to see a lot of Hispanic men in football, Aaron Hernandez was my guy. I was in love with him. I love a brown-skinned boy, clearly, So
Mexican Kid Harington.
Yeah, Mexican. Yeah, just so y'all know, I manifested this whole thing right here. As a child, I only loved the guys with long hair, and my husband now has a man bun. But I'll digress on that.
She thinks that I'm a Backstreet Boy.
Howie, that's the one I liked. That tells you everything you need to know right there. But anyways, back to what I was saying. I cannot stand who they have casted as Aaron Hernandez. I feel like the person that's playing his brother is more suited to actually play Aaron Hernandez as far as looks. And obviously we've talked about this as far as you got to pick one or the other. Like, are you going to have looks and not great acting, or are you going to have great acting and not looks, But this person is definitely a lot smaller than Aaron was. We've established that Aaron was a huge guy, but the other people that they have playing, such as Tim Tebow, like that doesn't look like Tim Tebow at all. And that guy looks like he weighs 120 pounds soaking wet, but they had to find someone comparable in size to what Aaron and Tim were in real life, if that makes sense. So the casting's okay. Again, as a girl who really liked Aaron Hernandez back then, the person they've chose to play Aaron Hernandez does not really strike my fancy, but that's not what we're here for, right?
Well said. And thank you for doing that while I was setting up the live link. It is now in the YouTube chat if you'd like to call in. Listen.
So on YouTube, so sorry for those of you that are on TikTok, it's Soup or Mario, SOUPORMARIO. So if you'd like to call in or live chat, we are on YouTube, Soup or Mario.
Thank you, my love. Look at the drop-ins that you're doing. Who said this was your first time doing a podcast?
I've only been watching you for 7 years.
That's right. That's right. I mean, I've been doing it for 10. Where were you the other 3? No, I'm just kidding.
I was in love with Aaron Hernandez. What are you talking about?
I guess so. Apparently, barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah.
So look, the actor's name is Josh Andres Rivera. I think he's a great actor. I think he's doing a great job from that perspective.
I think so too.
What I think, though, is that he is massively undersized compared to Aaron Hernandez, which is obviously something you really can't fault him for. How easy is it to find a guy the size of Aaron Hernandez? I mean, tight ends are already bigger than most of the dudes on offense, right? Not including the line. Aaron Hernandez was like bigger than most tight ends in that situation, or in that sense, right? And then you look at like Gronk and some of the other really big guys like Kelsey that would come later. Aaron Hernandez really showed like that new like level of tight end who could block, and tight end, like he could block like a lineman, but he could move like a receiver. You know what I mean? And so that was
oh, like they were, like we were talking about earlier with polo, if the draft, if all that information is correct, like he was the best draft pick that year. He was the best athlete. So to say that he could do everything, is an understatement, because he definitely was fast, he was strong, he was focused, he was an all-around great football player.
Yeah, absolutely he was. And that's the other thing too, getting to that aspect of it. Look, I feel like Ryan Murphy went a little too hard at Aaron Hernandez's sexuality.
Yeah.
They make Aaron seem like the gayest kid on the block.
Right. And
like easily the gayest kid on the block.
Yeah. So of course, obviously we don't have a problem with that,
Of course
at
not.
all, but
I have a problem with the authenticity.
it feels like they made him a lot more flamboyant than he was in real life, because if he was as flamboyant in real life as he's being portrayed on the show, then I feel like more people would have known. But it seemed to be a shock to everyone whenever all of the allegations came out that he had a boyfriend in jail and like this and this. Everyone was like, what?
Exactly.
Aaron Hernandez, like he's got a fiance, he's got a daughter. But they definitely have stretched his flamboyancy to the dramatic limits that it could go, I feel like.
Yeah, and but it wasn't just that for me though, baby. It was that Aaron Hernandez, like they make it seem like the reason he did all of it is because he was a closeted homosexual inside of a very anti-gay world. That's bullshit to me. Because look, I'm not saying that a locker room can't be super racist or super homophobic or super sexist. Look, I went to high school. I didn't want to bring this up with Polo, but I went to high school, and I could tell you right now, a dude that said the N-word every single day, a white guy, and like some people said it back then, and it just was a sign of the times. He said it back then in a way that was like, yeah, yikes, bro. I think you mean that. And so the only point I'm trying to make is that he was the rare case.
Right.
Maybe there was like two other people that were his friends outside of football that kind of carried themselves in that same kind of manner. But his name was no, I'm just kidding. I thought you no, but listen, the thing is that Aaron Hernandez story is so filled with innuendo and what happened, what didn't happen, why this, why that to interject that idea feels
inauthentic.
It feels inauthentic, and it feels intentionally trying to provocate. How do you say that? It feels intentionally provocative. Yeah. It feels intentionally provocative. And to the point that you're thinking more about ratings and how this is going to go over with a non-sports fan. And that's the part right there that bothers me. Like, we've been watching a lot of different shows lately.
Yeah.
One show that I really like that I think we'll talk about eventually, maybe next week, Nobody Wants This. Great throwback rom-com for the 2024s. They talk a lot about podcasting and stuff, which is super cool. But there's like these throwaway lines about like football and like sports that I'm hearing, and it's like everybody just assumes that anybody that played football or watches football is like this ultra MAGA, like right winger, like, and that's bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like, my dad loves football, and my dad is one of the most humble, loving people you could ever know. And at the end of the day, like, I don't look at it like, oh, you have to be this way to be a badass football player.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
you have to understand from the female perspective that most of the guys that you meet that are obsessed with sports, that is their singular thing that they're obsessed with. It controls everything about them, their whole day, all of their time, fantasy. And it also controls the way that they interact with the world. Of course, obviously, this is not everyone, but especially when you're younger, when you're in your 20s. Think about how you related to sports in your 20s. Think about how your life revolved. Think about going to sports bars. Think about your whole demeanor as a young man at that age. So men that are super obsessed with sports typically have specific qualities about them that make them more misogynistic. So
go ahead.
It's one of those things where you can say, like, everybody's seeing sports this way, but honestly, for women, that's what you get a lot of times. You
Yeah.
know, that's the type of person that you are getting when you are interested in someone who is a complete sports fan. I think your shoes are in the way.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm just gonna stop. I wanted to put my feet up and have Chocolatita come over so that we can have people subscribe because we have the cutest dog in the world. Unfortunately, she's being a bitch. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Was that a bad joke?
No,
Timed
I
with
mean,
what you said, like literally, like
yeah, like
yeah,
you
these
know what?
terrible
Bad
guys that
timing.
are
Bad
misogynistic.
timing.
No, I'm just kidding.
Get it together,
She's the
Mario.
best. Well, technically, she's a female dog,
So you were
you
laboring her right in that
know,
place, but you know,
learn English.
cancel. I'm just kidding.
That's funny. So look, I had some problems with that, right? And while we're interviewing Polo, and I'm trying to be unbiased as a Cowboys fan, as a fan
Right.
of football since the moment I can even remember. But now we're at this point where we're talking about the show, and I feel like I have to defend football. I feel like I have to defend sports. I feel like I have to defend coaches. But then we get a look at Urban Meyer. Now,
Oh,
Urban
man,
Meyer,
that was crazy. That
very much so, very much so. And I want to get your take on the mental health aspect of it and providing fatherhood for somebody in that kind of way. But essentially, Urban Meyer was the Florida Gators coach at the time when Tim Tebow was, playing there. And obviously Aaron Hernandez was there. Who else was it?
there was
It was
someone
Jordan Reed, I
else.
think. There was another badass tight end.
You're
Oh, it was
asking-
it was Mark Ingram, I think.
Those are
or-
rhetorical questions you're asking yourself because I don't know that. That's just you talking
Quick,
out loud.
what team does Dak Prescott play for?
The Steelers? I'm just kidding.
Yikes.
He's on the
No.
Cowboys. I know that one.
Yeah, I know. I make you know that one. Just like I know every single Netflix crime doc that drops.
Yeah. You also know Grey's Anatomy. You pop
and
in
Grey's
every once in a while,
Anatomy,
you
yeah.
know what's going on. So
Yeah, absolutely. And some other show about fire. Listen, I think that Urban Meyer has been one of the most well-respected names in college football and coaching in general, no matter what you're talking about. The series paints him as kind of a piece of shit, a guy who promised Aaron's mom and Aaron all these things at a time when Aaron Hernandez had lost his father, the most important person in his life. We agree?
yes, that was who he based his whole life around.
Absolutely,
honestly.
absolutely. And to preface that, or I should have, by acknowledging that not only did his father pass, but his father passed at a time when his brother, his oldest brother, D, was already off to college.
Right. So he had no one.
And mind you, this is at a time where Aaron Hernandez had already committed to, where was it, Penn?
He committed to Connecticut, wherever his brother was going in Connecticut. That's where he had
I
committed
don't think
to.
it was Connecticut, though.
Yes, it was.
No. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I don't remember.
It was UConn.
Oh, that's right. It was UConn. You're right. You're right.
Dang, y'all see how I pulled that out? I don't know nothing about
Damn,
football.
you're talking shit about it. I got a man bun, so I can't know about football anymore. So look, the thing is that it was at a time where the brother was at UConn and they had made Aaron Hernandez. This is where his dad went, was UConn,
Right,
who played
right.
football. He got kicked off the team for committing a robbery,
Correct.
even though he was
Apparently
the driver
he
or
was just a
something.
getaway
Yeah, he was
driver,
just
but-
the guy who was there. But anyway, dad's passed away. The mom, as Polo had mentioned earlier, was having an affair with their cousin's husband.
Correct.
And all of this, and a Florida Gator scout comes down to meet Aaron, knowing that he had already committed to UConn, but he did it at 14, and it was kind of
Right.
like, what the hell's that, right? Which I don't think that's fair to hold a
No,
kid at
it's
14 to where he's committing to college. The problem was he left, and that caused internal dissension to the family.
Right.
Because the brother was at UConn as the quarterback, and the coach was essentially saying, like, we want Aaron. Like, if you're
We're taking you, but Aaron's
but we
supposed to
want
be
Aaron.
coming too.
And it's going to be, and there's a line, it's kind of a throwaway line where he's like, it's going to be really hard to start you at quarterback without like a level 1 tight end, and it's kind of like this quid pro quo, like,
right.
and that's how good Aaron was.
Right.
Is that discernibly better? If you
Than
do
his
not
brother.
exactly, if you do not know football, you could just watch Aaron Hernandez practice for 15 to 30 minutes and say, oh no, there's something special about that guy.
Right.
But here you have this Florida Gator scout who shows up in a car stalking Aaron, pulls over, tells him, hey, let's go to Florida and check things out. He says, I already committed to UConn. They give him the whole shtick, bring him to Florida without his family knowing, specifically his mom and his brother who's at UConn, and then commits to Florida. All of this dissension works against Aaron. All of this. And so now you have Urban Meyer, who is the coach of Florida, as we said, not only coming into Aaron's life as
at a pivotal time,
at a very pivotal time, where he's a de facto father,
right,
replacing your head coach from football in high school. And not only that, you're telling the mom essentially, I know this kid's got a bright future in football, and I'm going to take that responsibility. Then he gets to college. And what we find out is that there were multiple incidences at college bars in Florida where they got them swept under the rug, or got Aaron out of trouble for
and
causing
not just Aaron,
fights.
The entire team.
Anytime a lot of the team,
the team, any of their star players got in trouble, they would sweep things under the rug. The cops or whatever, the tickets.
Lawyer.
Yeah, the lawyer. There was even an attorney.
Even Tim Tebow seemed to be kind of like a mouthpiece or like a front man.
Right.
Like he would be at the bar drinking water or a Coke while all the girls are talking to him.
Right.
And then the rest of the team was over there fucking around because everybody was focused on him. Right. So everybody kind of played this part, but Urban Meyer is painted in a way where he's just like this fucking villain, this piece of crap guy who, again, I grew up thinking, or not grew up, but watching sports, like Urban Meyer is a legend. Right. And I'm seeing these false promises and these candy dreams that he's selling Aaron Hernandez and the rest of the fam, right? And so you have that, and then it takes you to this point where you also find out he failed several drug tests for cannabis.
Repeatedly.
So was Urban Meyer looking out for him, or was Aaron just part of the quid pro quo?
Urban Meyer was looking out for Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer was looking at his bonuses and how much he gets paid, what is my team going to do this year, and that reflects my paycheck. And so he put up a front. What he did was wrong. If this is actually what he's doing, he's taking all these young brown and black boys, because the majority of players are brown and black.
Sure.
Okay.
Or poor white too, by the way.
Poor white. Yes. Poor. He's taking poor kids, minorities and poor kids. And he's giving them this dream of, I'm going to be a father figure to you. I'm going to help you transition. He makes them feel safe and comfy and comfortable. And then they get to Florida, and he pretends like he doesn't even, like, they're just another player on the team. Like, I don't understand that. How can you go to someone and spout all of these beautiful things, and then when they get to you, you treat them like you never even said any of those things. Like, you just, he babied him to get him on the team, or mentored him, or pushed him along. But as soon as he got there, he's like, no, bro, you're a man. Like this. You're like all the other players. Go on, figure it out. Your player buddies will help you. And then, like, let's be honest. They're all college kids. We were all dumb when we were young. Your prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. You're going to hear me say that a lot. Okay. Not until you're 25. Your prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until you're 25. So you have all these young kids. It's like, essentially, you're throwing them all together. It's essentially like when you're in high school and you're taking all of your sex advice from your friends
that
who don't know anything,
that are virgins,
just like you don't know anything.
That
and
that's
essentially what he did. That's what he did. He threw him to the wolves, and all of these things compound into the monster that Aaron Hernandez became. All of to have your father that was your center world. Aaron's father told Aaron how he was supposed to feel about himself, what made him valuable, what made him smart, what made him a man. That man dies. Then you have someone else coming in saying, I'm going to pick up that slack. I'm going to do that job. And then you just leave him by the wayside. Of course, he's going to go out and do whatever he does. He is going to use a coping skill such as marijuana and alcohol.
Absolutely.
Because what other coping skills does he know? He doesn't know anything else.
Nothing. He's been taught these things by men who are using him to win football games, right? Or, by the way, to what's the word? Like when you help somebody to, like, not do, like
He was enabling him.
enabling him. Thank you. They were, or the mom was enabling him, or the brother, or whoever else, because
Right.
of what was on the line.
Right.
And we saw the mom was buying cars or getting cars, you know, years before he was even about to sign an NFL draft.
Right.
Right? She's already
She's already
spending money
spending
that he
money.
doesn't have. That said, and shout out to Skywalker OG Christian. Shout out, homie. I just met him. Appreciate you tapping in. By the way, the link is in the YouTube. If anybody else wants to call in, let me make sure that I sent
And
it to
on
there real
TikTok,
quick.
shout out to Allie K. She gave me my first gifts on live.
That's
Thank you so much, Allie.
awesome.
I really
Shout out.
appreciate it. Thank you for watching.
You're awesome, Allie. And man, I wish I would have put up the soundboard so I could do the claps and everything. But that's okay. Next time.
We'll have claps for you next time, Allie. You just pop on and we'll just give you your claps right away.
You know what?
That sounded weird.
You know what? Go ahead and just start twerking so we can go. No, I'm just kidding.
You're the twerker, not me.
Whoa.
I got married.
Those
I put my HOE days behind me.
Those
baby.
are private. No, listen, I think
Put
that
my club days behind me.
I think that yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, so we were on Aaron Hernandez, right? I was trying to look
and so
up
we
this
were
thing.
talking about Coach Myers, and it makes me think, like, how many of those players did he do that to? And then it also makes me think back, and of course, you guys, I'm gonna go a little race heavy, okay? So I think back to when I was in school. Now I am white passing. My mother is Hispanic. My father is white. But I grew up very poor, and my parents were addicts. I grew up in a small town. The richer kids in that town.
I'm so sorry.
The richer kids in that town, the ones that had played sports for a long time, or that even had money that their parents, donated to the booster program, those are the kids that got the most attention. Those were the kids that got the mentorship. Those were the kids that got everything that they needed from their coach. And I had white coaches. So Tim Tebow is an example, is a parallel example of kind of the girls that I went to school with. Okay. So you have someone like Tim Tebow that is the quintessential Christian, white, all-American boy. And he's probably getting the mentorship that he didn't even need. But he got that over players like Aaron Hernandez, who, what's his name? The coach's name?
Urban Meyer.
Urban Meyer could not relate to. He didn't know how to mentor those kids. He knew how to be a coach, but you're telling me he knows how to mentor the kid from the freaking Bronx that's been poor his entire life and is as a brown skinned boy and has grown up with, racism and classism and all those things. He doesn't know how to do that. So it's a failure in a sense to those players that didn't grow up the quintessential all-American white boy.
Well said. Wow. Yeah. I think that there's a lot there that you're tapping into. And I don't know if it's a situation where I don't know. Because I want to say Urban Meyer's a big piece of shit that just is a great coach, right? But
we're also
maybe it's
going
the
off the
system,
dramatization,
right? Oh,
too.
absolutely.
And
That
again,
too.
We don't
But
know
it's
this for sure.
Exactly. But the system itself needs to be fixed. And I think Polo brought to light so much. I mean, the fact that he talked about, the NCAA essentially wanting this current pay-to-play system to fail just so they can come back in and be the good guy. It's such bullshit.
They want that money for themselves.
Yeah, of course. That's what it's always been about, and that's what it's always going to be about.
It's all about money. And essentially at the end of the day, who actually gets those money? There's very few people that are CEOs or whatever for these private colleges that are actually benefiting from that money.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And so it creates, again, it creates a problem giving these players all of this money. Now also in a sense, if Aaron Hernandez would have gotten $1 million for playing at University of Miami, would we have seen his issue sooner? Would he have not made it to the NFL and made it to where he was?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Would we?
And if he went to UConn, would he still be alive today?
Who knows? Like, we have no clue. And that's the craziest thing about life is those little decisions split you off into different realities, and anything can change. And you could always do shoulda, woulda, coulda, but we're never gonna know.
So,
you know what I
so
mean?
let me ask you a question for the remainder. Now, we watched the Netflix documentary that Polo talked about, so we know kind of what's coming up in the story.
Right.
Maybe not in terms of like how it's set up story-wise, right?
Right.
But it looks like the next episode is going to deal with the first killing in Bristol.
Yes.
And then and the way that it was shot, the way that Ryan Murphy attacked this story, and it's very, very similar to what he's done in the past. If Meow wants to jump up, he's fine, but can you just make sure he doesn't
Yeah, I'm gonna go use the restroom.
Go ahead. Yeah. And then I'll use it after you because I gotta take a piss. So listen, I think that what we know is gonna come is gonna be the death scenes, the killings, right? I think that because of the nature of the crime, like they're gonna basically make it more dramatic, right? I'm not saying that shooting someone in cold blood isn't dramatic. Obviously it is. But when you talk about Ryan Murphy's body of work, this is the guy who's responsible for American Horror Story. If nobody's ever watched American Horror Story out there, first of all, it's fucking awesome. The first 3 seasons, I think, are easily the best. The 3rd season might be the best. And then they've progressively gotten worse since then. Ryan Murphy shoots a lot of the stuff in similar fashion. And when you look at the OJ story, right? That was the American Crime Story, I think it was called. He was,
Yes.
and you can turn this, by the way, just like this, so that you can come back in all chill, right? So it's all shot kind of similar, right? They use the same kind of text when they're going to set up a scene, and it's all kind of like that Ragnarok type of feel in terms of, fonts and things like that, right? Because of the nature of Ryan Murphy's shows and the gruesome murders that we see in fictitious stories, I get this feeling that he's going to overly dramatize the shootings. I want to ask you 2 things. One, is it fair to take liberties in real life killings like this, like real life crimes like this? Is it fair to take creative liberties when you're doing this? Like, it's not a documentary, right? It's
right.
And then the other thing I want to ask you is, for the remainder of the show, what is it that you hope to see based on the story that you are seeing, right? Like, what do you hope they touch on from this point on?
So back to Ryan Murphy. I don't know. I mean, in art, I don't want to say all is fair in art, but art is art, right? Art.
Absolutely.
And film is art. Now, obviously, someone greenlit this show and they saw and they're like, whoa, cool. Yeah, be dramatic, do whatever you want to do. But I will say that there are a lot of people that are refusing to watch the Eric and Lyle Monsters story on Netflix because they do not like the way that Ryan Murphy portrayed the brothers as incestuous, as in adulthood. And so he has this, honestly, it kind of feels like a kink in a sense. Like he has this incessant need to make everything very more dark than it is. Now, and that attracts his audience for sure. I mean, obviously we watch it, right?
Definitely.
But sometimes it just feels disrespectful and ugly.
When it's like a true story,
When it's a true story. I don't feel like it's right to take creative liberties in the actual,
like a factual show.
True crime, to take liberties on the actual crime itself. Now, the liberties he's taking as far as, what Aaron was like in college and things like that. Okay, whatever, that's art. That's part of the process. It's a dramatization, but it is not fair to take any dramatic liberties for the actual crime itself.
I agree. They touched on things like, okay, these are things I didn't know. Aaron Hernandez, there was a story written in the college paper, Florida, that anonymously identified him as one of the star athletes that were going to that library at Florida and having sexual encounters.
Wait, I thought they just said it was a player. They didn't name him.
I didn't. If I said that they named him, that was an accident. Gotcha. I meant to say they anonymously put him in. So the person that did the article knew it was Aaron Hernandez.
Right, but he
the
didn't
person
name
that
names.
gave the interview obviously knew it was
Right.
Aaron
But they never
Hernandez,
named names.
but they never named names. And now I do want to make this point that maybe it wasn't Aaron Hernandez, right? Maybe they just saw, because there was this story in the Florida paper at the college that essentially showed that swimmers, that there was players on the tennis team.
Everyone that was basically seemed macho was hooking up.
Bro, and what was with the Florida library being like the fuck zone? That's
I
a
have
weird.
no
That's like
clue.
where I would go to like read Hemingway, not like
I don't
get a
know. We
Hummer.
talked about this. I don't
That's
know
a
how
weird
that
thing to do.
works.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a
Ah.
thing, I guess, that happens. Like, you know, I guess. I don't know. I've never done it. But yeah, it's weird. That's weird to hook up in the library. People are studying. Like,
Calm
I don't want to
down.
hear like the fuck is that? Trying to read my fucking Shakespeare. Listen, I think ultimately though, what you have is this idea that we're getting a show for which many more people are going to watch than the Netflix documentary.
Right.
So then 5 to 10 years from now,
This
when
is
the
where they're gonna
show's
say,
over,
this is Aaron.
they'll be like, oh man, I bet he's like super gay and like being you know, shit talked to in the NFL, and that's why he did XYZ, like Aaron Hernandez. And it's like, yeah, but that's not what
That's a
we know.
dramatization.
Maybe, sure, maybe,
No.
but that's not. No. I'm not talking about what you just
Yeah.
said. I'm saying maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But that's not the point. The point is, what do we know and what do we don't know? And I feel like Ryan Murphy has gone too far out in interpreting what we do know.
It makes for good entertainment, but it doesn't make. It's not journalism. You
Yes,
can't.
yes.
You can't bank.
And he's not a
on-
journalist, so
right,
that's
and you
fair.
can't bank on his shows for facts.
Exactly.
Point
Exactly.
blank.
Well said.
And unfortunately, I mean, think about when we were young. Like, I watched a lot of Lifetime movies as a kid. Okay, that's why you will never beat me, because I will hit you with a cast iron in your sleeve if you do, because Lifetime taught me better. But in all of those, most of them were real
Also,
life.
I just wouldn't beat you.
I
but-
mean, yeah, but also because you're scared of being hit by the cast iron. It's okay.
Sure, absolutely.
I'm just saying. I'm just kidding. But in that, watching all of those dramatizations, I thought I knew the true stories of those women that I was watching on TV.
Yeah.
You know, the Tracy Thurman story. That's one of my favorite movies of all time from Lifetime. But as I get older and I research and I see, oh, they took dramatic.
I would say most of them were horseshit.
Yeah, but you understand, but there's a younger generation
Of course,
that's going
of course.
to have to.
No, I get the point you're making.
Yeah, they're going to have to figure out as they get older, like, that wasn't real life. You know, that's not really real.
Like steroids don't scientifically, or like we don't know scientifically that steroids cause roid rage. That is not at all accurate.
Excuse me. I saw a Lifetime movie where a woman whose husband was on roids.
His name's Ben Affleck.
No, he murdered her. And the scene that I remember the most is them spraying luminol all over the walls.
I'd be willing to bet that
was
that
roids.
man would have done that act
I'm sure he would have.
no matter
obviously.
what.
But
you know, but again, that point you're making
Yeah,
is in that it's like steroids don't do these things, but they have a full movie based on the fact that the perfect guy who was the dreamboat, who was attentive and loving and caring, and he was just the best man you could ever marry. Oh no, but then he started taking steroids and he turned into fucking Dahmer. Like, that's not true.
No.
That's bullshit. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, if that ever happens, it's because that guy was already a piece of shit.
Exactly.
And you just didn't know it, and he hit it really well from you. I mean, look, dude, for Christ's sake, look at Aaron's wife, who he knew from high school, and they had a daughter together, and this woman had no clue, it seems, what Aaron Hernandez's life was really like.
Well, let's kind of take that a little bit back.
So you go into that. I'm gonna go piss real quick.
Something that you asked me, like, what am I looking forward to seeing in this, the rest of the series? What I am looking forward to seeing is how they're going to portray. So sorry, excuse me. His fiance's role in all of this, because if you've watched the documentary, you know that they have all of the cameras were disabled in the house after the body of Odin Lloyd was found. Okay, so all of the footage was wiped away, except a couple of days later, maybe a day or so later, they saw footage of Aaron's fiance throwing out bags. It looks like she was cleaning up. They never found the weapon. They never found any of that. So I am very interested to see how they're going to portray what happened in the house. like during and after the murder? How did he get her to help him? I mean, obviously at this point they're living in this giant house, and you know, we are conditioned as humans to her name is Shayana. I'm so sorry. I couldn't remember her name, Shayana. I want to see what Shayana's role was in the dramatization. I want to see how it went down. Now I have a theory that she probably secretly knew the entire time who he actually was. I mean, you don't know someone since high school. Listen, I had a high school boyfriend. We were together from the time I was 14 until I was 20. And I was probably the person that knew who he really was the most at his core. And I really feel like Shayana knew who Aaron was. And in this time where he has committed this crime, but she is living this very big and lavish lifestyle, she doesn't want to give that up. Like, who wants to give that up? Who wants to give up a lifestyle that you have wanted your entire life, and it also has been proposed to you as the lifestyle you're supposed to have? You're supposed to be keeping up with the Joneses. You're supposed to be, rich. You're supposed to have everything and all that you want. So my assumption is when push came to shove, it was about preservation of herself and of their daughter. Like, let me help Aaron because my daughter needs to have a dad and I need to keep this lifestyle that I already have.
Yo, but I respect that though, for real. I mean, I do
guess.
No. Listen, look, I'm not talking about this situation specifically. Obviously, it was a monstrous thing and there's no excuse for it. And that's not specifically what I'm saying. What I'm specifically saying, it's nice to have a woman down for you like that. Look, again, I know it might sound silly, but in an era today where I feel like women are basically college head coaches at a certain point where they're looking for a husband, and their tactics. Like, look, you're rolling your eyes, and I'm not trying to say that it's all women, not at all.
My eyes, I'm doing the monkey side eye.
Oh, okay. Well, then that's better. I don't know.
It is.
But what I'm trying to say is, like, look, we both know that there are women who fake pregnancies to get men into marriage. There are women who do things, right?
There are more men that trap women than women that trap men. Just point blank.
I don't know if that's true.
Look, bro.
Are you saying that from a stats point? Do you know that factually?
That from being someone that has dated men my entire life, men present themselves as one thing to get you, and then they turn into something else. So,
but everybody does that.
But men are,
and also that's your experience.
Used
that's
to
not
wearing a mask. It's not just my experience.
Well, no. But I'm saying
lots of women.
Sure,
but listen to me. Men are used to wearing a mask. Men are used to being one thing around men and in society and being something different at home. So men are more likely to trap women than women are to trap men. You can fight me on it. Let's go outside. No, not you. I mean anyone. No, I'm ready. No, I'm just kidding.
And as far as I'm concerned, I'm not. Look,
you're right. There are women that are out there trying to trap men that they feel have a lot of money or are going to make a lot of money.
And can we say that, like, a man, I think, look, I am agreeing with you. Men do that. I think it happens most when they're already in that relationship, right? What I'm saying is there are tactics. Like, how many comedies and rom-coms and movies and docs do we see where it's like, oh yeah, we're going out tonight and we're gonna find a man?
You mean the movies that were created by men?
Damn. Fair point. But you make it sound like, okay, like, I know it's like once women get to a certain age or girls get to a certain age, they're like, dude, I want to go out tonight and fucking dance with a dude and like have his fucking testicles banging against my lap while they're playing the thong song. Like, I want to dance with my girls. I want to be comfortable. And I understand that totally. But when you talk about men trying to trap or whatever women, it's a thing where it's like they're thinking about it for that night or for that moment or for that thing. Like, you have women who go out to essentially create this plan to do this. And so go ahead. I'm sorry.
You don't think the men that are saying that they just want submissive wives and they want this, that's not a trap? That's not a predetermined
But
trap?
Those are just pieces of shit, though.
But you cannot understand lump there's more men like that than there are men like you.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that there are women.
I don't understand the disconnect.
I think the disconnect is this. When you're talking about men like that, they are very easy to recognize. It is impossible for a
Recognized
man,
by you?
maybe fine, but it is impossible for a man to distinguish between a good woman and a bad woman, or even a good woman and a woman who's going to stick by you no matter what. And again, I know it's stupid to talk about Aaron Hernandez's story and make it seem like that. I'm not. I'm really not. It's just nice that you see a woman who's fighting for the family. You see a woman who, no matter what, is thinking of the daughter and not Aaron Hernandez. It's not like she's there saying like, oh my God, I got to take care of my baby doll. Like he's in there. He needs his Harry Potters and, you know, he needs his foot rubbed. And
she talked to him every single day on the phone.
Agreed. But the baby was always with her. Did she somehow, know subconsciously that he was going away for a while or never coming back at all, and know that she was trying to give her daughter as many memories with him as she could?
Sure.
That's not for him. That's for her. And so I guess I'm saying is, look, if a bitch is going to throw away your fucking gun lockbox on camera the way she did, that's crazy. You put yourself in way too much risk. Right. But the fact that she was willing to at least support the family and put the job that a lot of men incorrectly think is their only job to protect, and she put that shit on her shoulders. I respect that. She's built different. You're that kind of person. You know, if I went down for whatever, I know you're holding it down. I'm not scared, but I found a good one. And I can relish in that. But for the men that may watch this,
how much was that relationship? Like, how much was she actually doing that for him? Like, I feel like it was for her and for her preservation. It wasn't for the family. It was for her and for her daughter.
Yeah, no, that's kind of the point. That's what the point I'm making. Gotcha. It's not that I'm saying like, oh, he deserved this or men deserve this. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, here's a woman who doesn't see it as like, no, you're the breadwinner and I'll go ahead and do the dishes and take care of the baby. And then it's your job to like hold the family down. Nah, this bitch said, no, you're going away. All right, well, it's time to step up. And she was there for her daughter. She was there for her man, not in a way that was like romantic or relationship wise, but in terms of helping him to get the stuff done that was better off for their family. And you said it yourself. You said that you think Aaron may have been in a position where they needed the money, right? And the daughter would have never gotten the money without Aaron, being gone.
Correct.
And that right there, these are the tough decisions that men and women have to do and get together. And look, Skywalker OG is messaging. I'm going to read some of his messages because they are very, very vital. And then I'm going to explain to you what's going on with Skywalker OG that I know. He said, I loving this. I agree 100%. Nowadays, women have high standards. You got to be perfect. You got to have this, got to have that. What happened to the love that they think because they're just pretty, they think they can get what they want? From my experience, and this is his experience, right? And this is a young man who works very, very hard. Okay. Right. He has money.
Right.
And he has the money, but what he doesn't have is the time to learn what are the qualities and traits in a woman, not a girl. We're not talking about a high school relationship. We're talking about a woman who is going to help you and you're going to help her elevate each other. That's what it's about. And so when you are in a position, this man being as young as he is, making as much money as he is, he's vulnerable. He's vulnerable to that aspect. Because as much as you want to talk about the red pill men, which I agree, they're a lot of pieces of shit. There are women that buy into that and expect it from men as well. That's the only point I'm trying to make.
Again, but that's the patriarchy. That is the societal structure we live in, that we've been taught that men are the breadwinners and women are the ones that are supposed to be submissive. But we've come to a point now where we understand that the patriarchy doesn't benefit us and it doesn't benefit men. Because if it did, white men and Native American men wouldn't be the highest demographic for people that take their own lives.
Oof.
Do you understand
what I'm saying?
That's a powerful
point. Well, all I can say is, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I completely empathize with Skywalker OG, and I empathize with the young men right now that are out there in the dating game, because I do know that it's different. It's a lot. It's different than when we were younger. But I will say, all in all, from what that I have seen and experienced, is that young women are no longer allowing men to just skate by. Okay. They're not willing to take the responsibility for men's actions. They're not willing to take the responsibility
Nor
for their
should they.
mental health. But you understand, nor should they, but they have been for years.
Yeah.
How many times do I try to take on your feelings?
All the
Because
time.
that's what I've been conditioned to do.
You do.
It's to keep the household calm and to keep everything status quo. But that's not my job. I'm my own human. You're supposed to learn how to regulate your emotions. And we're just kind of getting out of that mindset. And women are really forcing men to be accountable to themselves and to their maturity. There are men that say, like, women, they just want this. It's so hard to find a good woman who doesn't want this and doesn't want this. What she wants for you is to be mentally mature.
No.
Real women, the women that you're talking about that want to hold someone down and they want to be held down, they are looking for a man that has the mental capacity that they have. They're looking for a man that is willing to admit when he's wrong.
Okay.
He's willing to work on his mental health.
Sure.
He's willing to put in the same effort that she is putting in mentally, because whether men realize it or not, most of the work that women do is up here.
Okay.
We are constantly assessing everything that's going on. Even when I ask you to do a task, not you, I'm just saying in general.
I understand.
Ask you to do a task, in the back of my mind, I'm still wondering, okay, did it actually get done? If I can't really, trust this person, can they really get it done? Did I send them an email, all the information? This is a grown man that can also use Google.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So women are tired of that.
I totally understand. And I agree with you in a lot of the points you're making. However, I think you're talking about a relationship,
But you were talking
full-blown
about
relationship. Yes, but I'm talking about getting into the relationship, right? Specifically for men. And that's kind of the point I was making all around. It wasn't that I'm saying like, oh, women try to trap men and men are just perfect. Obviously, that's bullshit. Everybody tries to trap everybody. What I'm saying is the tactics of it, right? And I feel like you were giving women in the dating field too much credit at this point, because we've watched a show recently. I mentioned it earlier. Nobody Wants This, streaming right now on Netflix with, what's her name? Dax Shepard's Kristen Bell. Thank you. With Kristen Bell, very talented. And
crazy that you rememed Dax's name, but not her name, and she's the more.
Well, I've been watching
actress.
Dax since he was in Punked, and I've known him a lot longer.
Gotcha.
And I'll be honest, as much as I think Kristen Bell is a great talent, man, I confuse her for what's her name from Wild? Reese Witherspoon.
Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah,
a lot of people do
sometimes.
that.
I almost called her Reese. That's why I said Dax Shepard Saint, just so you know.
Yeah.
We were watching that show, and this is about two single sisters who have a podcast, kind of like Call Her Daddy back in its original days when it was on Bar Sports, and they talk about their sex lives and they talk about relationships and all this stuff. And so essentially the show is about them being on this podcast. They're about to sign to Spotify, and Kristen Bell's character meets a rabbi. And you learn a lot about rabbis in this show. Like, I didn't know they could have sex. I didn't know a lot of stuff about the Jew. And in fact, man, it really sells the Jewish faith really well in terms of, organized religion. But there's a part that that I was going to bring up to talk about. The ick is what Kristen Bell called it. Yeah. The ick. And for all those watching, I'm going to explain the ick if you have not watched Nobody Wants This, or if you've never heard of the ick before. In the scene, Kristen Bell, who's not super close with her parents, she's close with her mom, but not with her parents. The dad ended up coming out of the closet and having a relationship with another man. And the mom, you can tell it's not that she's hurt still. It's that she's recognizing the love.
She's still in love with the dad.
Yes. And she's also sees the love he gives the new partner that he doesn't give to the children, right? The kids. Right. I mean, they're grown up now, but so then at this point, the dad and the mom are going to come over, and they didn't tell. This is all spontaneous. And the rabbi boyfriend is there. So the rabbi boyfriend freaks out because he's used to making great impressions with family. So he goes to the car, puts on a sport coat, ends up buying flowers for the mom. And so the parents come in, and then the boyfriend comes in, gives the mom the flowers, and Kristen Bell's looking like kind of gross, like, oh, what the hell? And she's like, is that a blazer? Which he keeps calling a sports coat, which some reason makes her even more mad. And he's trying to impress the mom, trying to impress the dad. And then the sister goes, hey, come out here, help me with something. And she goes, you have the ick, don't you? And she's like, I can't help it. And she is willing to break up with this man who she has literally says that he is like nothing she's ever met before. And I know about the ick.
Yeah.
I know about the ick, okay? Because there are girls out there right now, hopefully they're watching, and they got the ick with me.
Right.
Because I tried to walk them to the door, or because I opened the door for them, or because I went up to their father, shook them in the hand, and looked them in the eyes like my father taught me how to respect men. And they got the ick. And
Yeah.
you know what? That's fucking bullshit.
Well,
Bullshit.
you
Because,
have
and I'm
to
not even saying it's like not about
understand-
nice
you have
guys,
to
but that's bullshit.
understand-
So that you can't say that's this
So
maturity.
you have to understand that to get an ick. Okay, first of all, there are different varying degrees of the ick, but I understand the ick from a nice guy because I have also gotten the ick from a nice guy. He didn't do anything essentially wrong in any way, shape, or form, but it was his niceness.
Were you mature
that
at that
gave
time?
me
Would you
the
say
ick.
you were mature at
Well,
that
let
time?
me finish.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was just a question. I'm sorry. My bad.
Damn. Okay, so getting the ick from a nice guy it comes down to
Daddy issues.
it is. It's daddy issues. Thank you for stealing my word. Wow, I have the ick right now. Divorce immediately. Immediately divorce. No, it comes down to the unhealed versions of us because the men that gave me the ick, the nice guys that gave me the ick, I remember this one specific guy. I was living in California at the time. He was really nice. He was a firefighter. We'd gone on a date and he wanted me to come over so he could cook dinner for me. He wasn't trying anything crazy. Like this was a guy I had vetted or whatever. But something about that did not settle with me. I was 21 at the time. My dad had never been around. And someone being nice to me, especially a man, gave me the ick. I was so used to being discarded and for starving so much for masculine attention that when a man was nice to me, I couldn't handle it. So it gave me the ick. I was not used to a male person being nice to me in that way. I was not used to someone wanting to do things for me. There was an unhealed version of me that got the ick from a nice guy because in my mind, real men are fighters and they protect their girlfriends and they're tough and they're it's toxic masculinity is what I thought that I wanted and what I thought that I was seeking.
How old were you?
I was 21 at this time. So those were the men that I was more attracted to. So nice men did give me the ick. And in this instance with Kristen Bell, and it plays out exactly the way, I'm talking about. She is a woman who has been starving for affection from her father. So when a man shows her nice affection that she's never had before, she got the ick. And it happens all the time. So, and that kind of comes full circle to like guys that talk crap about how like girls, when they're young, they'll sleep around and they'll do this and they'll do this. And then at some point they're like, I'm celibate, I'm not sleeping around. And now they want the nice guy. Well, yeah, because they were looking for their value in men that they were told were the prototypical masculine man.
Very well said.
So once you realize that you've been using sex as a self-harm technique, once you start to realize your own value, you do become celibate because you're not willing to give away the one thing that you were so willing to give away anymore. And there are men that resent that. There are men that resent the fact that a woman was maybe a hoe her whole life, and now that they're together, she don't want to sleep with him.
Body
but
count,
she's actually trying to build something substantial for herself.
No, it's unfair.
Right. But that just all kind of comes full circle. Like
Sure.
women go through this healing journey, you know what I mean? And at that point in Kristen Bell's life, she was not there yet. So that gave her the ick.
Obviously we're supposed to be talking about Aaron Hernandez. I want to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I think it is an important conversation. And what I want to say about it is this. I'm just going to echo what you said is very enlightening.
Right.
I think there would be men, if they're being honest right now, that would be watching and be like, holy shit, she kind of gets it, which is big. But you're a good one. And I know that, right? They don't know that yet. Look, I hear what you're saying and you hit all the nail on the head, but let me tell you my experience at this point, right? I am 19 years old, right? I've just given up on baseball after
Right.
I worked really hard to walk on my freshman year at a D2 school
Right.
just to get redshirted and put on the practice squad. So I'm kind of aimless at this point, right?
Right.
And my high school sweetheart, who I'd been dating for 4 or 5 years, and we were friends for 6 or 7, is no longer in my life either. And I got into a lot of fights. Being 5'6", a short Hispanic kid, you're always gonna have somebody say something or think they can make fun of you or try to check you. And that happened to me very young age at school. And I made a decision very, very early what I have to do. I actually saw this movie. It was a recommendation from Blood In, Blood Out, like back when you used to do that, right? I don't even remember what the movie is. And essentially what it taught you was that if you're the small guy in jail or whatever, you always go up to the biggest guy and hit him.
Right.
So that philosophy, even though it didn't make sense just like that, it made sense in the sense that if I hit somebody for just saying something,
Mhm.
everyone will think that they'll get hit for saying something, right?
Right.
So here I am falling victim to my own toxicity, the male toxicity that's in that. I think you'd probably be better off turning it sideways if you can. Can you or no? You can't?
Just go ahead. Keep going.
Okay. I would put it just further back on that one. But anyway,
Well, they can't hear us. There's no microphone.
oh, you're right. Fuck, I totally forgot.
We moved it farther back.
I'm so sorry. I totally
okay.
forgot about that.
We'll fix it for
We'll
next
fix it for next time. So look, the issue is this. The issue is that you and I come from similar places in the sense of trauma.
Right.
But I had to be a fighter. I had to be a guy that literally fought. By the
Right.
time I was 20 years old, I had been in over 2 dozen fist fights, street fights, because I got checked constantly.
Yeah.
And I would say 95% of those fights should have been avoided. But I had this thing in my chest that made me
Right.
feel like I wasn't a man because I was too short, because I wasn't
Right.
playing sports anymore, because I wasn't making X amount of dollars, whatever it was, right? So I meet this girl, I take her out, and like I said, I try to walk her to the door, not feeling it. You know, I insisted on shaking her dad's hand, even though she was like, no, don't worry about him. Come on, come on. Like, yo, what the fuck you think that does to me? Like, you're so not thinking about me in this situation to just be like, nah, fuck you, dad. Like, I don't know that man.
Right.
I don't know him. Like, you want me to diss him and I'm taking out his daughter because you got issues with him? Like, yo.
Well, I mean,
and
but you also have to understand that that's a 21-year-old woman.
Of course,
right?
but I mean, but what I'm trying to get you to understand is that the male toxicity you're talking about, I'm living it. So then to have a girl who's shorter than me, weighs less than me, basically give me this look like I'm a B word or a P word, right? Because I'm trying to do right by her, because I'm trying to be nice.
Right.
You understand? Like, it gives me now this direction where I'm like hurt by it.
Right.
And now I'm trying to find out, how do I become masculine again in this woman's eyes? Because if I'm going to do it to a man, I'm just going to talk more shit than him, or I'm going to punch him, or I'm going to do something physical.
Girl, so that's a red flag. Essentially, that's the type of girl that is not healed. She has trauma.
And by the way, that trauma,
she's going to be looking for a more burly masculine man. She's going to be looking for someone that's just going to fight on point.
And is it wrong for me to say fuck her for that?
I mean, you sound kind of mad right now. Yeah.
Look, I'm not mad. Look, I'm not mad. I'm not. Obviously, I ended up with the best wife in the world. I won. And I don't mean that like that's a weird way to put it, the competitive nature that you talked about in sports. But I did win. I did. You know, I got the partner that has my back no matter what. And I don't know what your partner does, but it ain't better than mine.
I was that girl.
Sure.
So
And I understand that.
Essentially, I had to evolve into who I am
look,
now.
I think the only point I'm really trying to make ultimately is that it feels sometimes like when women talk about this, they do understand the pressures. But that toxicity that y'all talk about, the male toxicity, there's a responsibility for women as well. Like, they play a role in it.
There is definitely a responsibility,
not as much as men,
in
but
women to heal and to hold those toxic men accountable by saying like, no,
and hold themselves accountable.
Yeah, that's why I said to heal. When they
heal,
I'm
sorry, I didn't understand.
When women heal, they're no longer going to pick those type of men. when you heal, you're no longer going to pick the type of person that you were conditioned to pick through childhood. Because let's be honest, you pick what you knew as a child. You continue to repeat the same relationships that you had with your parents over and over
Beautiful
until
stuff.
you start to heal. So
no, that's a great point. And
right.
I look at Polo, right, who we just had on. If you have not, if you're tuning in late, we had Polo Gutierrez on, who is a former football player at the college level, as well as a coach for UTSA. Today he is selling houses, and you can look in the link and find his information in case you're in the Texas area looking for it. But he said it himself in terms of, you know, the groundswell in terms of toxicity,
right,
and the way it works. And for us as men to get through it, right, we have to have help, because we have a whole world convincing us that we're not good enough, or that we're not tough enough, or that we're not strong enough. And I look at a guy like Polo. Real quick. Let me just finish this point that I'm trying to make.
Okay.
Look, Polo is the guy who I admire so much, because he had the height, he had the size. Okay. There's not a man or a boy or a kid that I went to school with to right now that could fuck with him.
Right.
He would put you on your ass and make you wish that
Okay.
you never. Okay. So that guy was always the sweetest dude in the world.
Right.
Treated women really well, was really nice, but he is not the standard bearer, right? He is not representative of every single person that's that size.
Right.
So I guess all I'm saying is, like, you have to find that person in your life that's able to break those things, right, from you. And even though I grew up with Polo, even though we hung out, even though I knew his dad, he knew my dad.
Things in what sense? Break
the idea that I'm a bitch if a man says so.
Gotcha.
Or if a woman says
Gotcha.
so. And then finding a way to prove them wrong without violence, without any sort of physicality, really. Like today, nobody could break my shit.
Right.
Not because I think I'm like this fucking man that's like, oh, whatever. Like I've boxed, I've fought 3 times in my life in an amateur fight. I've competed in 2 different powerlifting things. None of that makes me a man. None of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, what makes me a man today is that I would drop every single thing in this world for my family, for you, and for the fur babies in that other room.
Yeah.
But it takes a long time for a man to learn that.
And I understand, and I get that. And you know, the old saying, girls mature faster. Girls don't necessarily mature faster. We're just put with more responsibility than men are at such a young age. And so while I understand the sentiment that it's nice to find someone to hold you down, ultimately it is the responsibility of men to get their mental health together, to find the person that's going to hold them down, just like it's women's responsibility to get their shit together, to find the right man that they're meant to find.
Yeah.
We have some comments. Do you want to read them?
Yeah, let me go ahead and read these. So Skywalker OG had a really good comment I wanted to get to. He said, I understand where she's coming from about the mental health issues. It's just hard for me because my mom wasn't there for me. My dad was never here. I wasn't raised in an emotional house.
Right.
Hold. So I get attached fast and depend on my partner for that. And so I really don't know how to control my emotions, if that makes sense. It makes perfect sense.
Beautiful.
Honestly, it makes perfect sense, bro.
Your honesty is so beautiful to be that.
And that's manly right there. That's manly being able to just admit that shit.
That's human. Like, and that's
for sure.
And that's the thing
like
the most about that I can't stand about the toxicity of masculinity, or the part of masculinity that's toxic, is it tries to teach men that feelings are only for children and women. Everybody has feelings. Feelings are human, and you should not be embarrassed by your feelings, and you should not be embarrassed to express your feelings. And this, here's the thing, Skywalker OG, I grew up with, like, I still got mommy issues, to tell you the honest truth. I'm working through them right now. My dad was not around. My mom and I don't get along, but I will tell you the one thing that helped me the most to find a partner like I found in Mario was learning to love myself and nurturing that child that was neglected. I had to learn how to become my own parent up here. I always knew how to be my own parent because I knew how to take care of myself. Like going through the motions of taking care of yourself was never a problem, but I didn't know how to talk to myself. I didn't know what was supposed to be good, what was supposed to be bad. I never had anyone say that feeling's normal, or it's okay that that happened, or, things are going to be like, I never had that. And so I had to cultivate that for myself. So I think as you're on this journey to find a partner, the one thing that you want to find first is yourself. You want to find yourself first. You want to love yourself first, because if you don't love yourself and you don't know how to set the proper boundaries, you're going to keep getting partners that are going to step all over you.
Very, very great point. But I want to say one last thing too, though. It's up to you.
Yes.
It's up to you to recognize that
And you're
hold
doing
on
a
real
great
quick
job.
though. That bitch on IG that's bad, like that's not what it's about. You know what I mean? Like, look, you have to be attracted to your partner, of course, right? But you have to know what to prioritize in a woman, right? Or in a partner, I should say, right? Because this goes for women and men who want to date men and women who want to date women. You have to find that. And like, we're not saying that that having, a physical relationship in terms of like working out together or sexual, like none of that's bad or unhealthy. That's not what we're saying. It's the moment when you make that the basis of your relationship, right?
Exactly.
That's where it falls flat. And so I think that first of all, the right step in understanding where your pitfalls are is like a
Yes.
huge thing.
That is
right?
literally the first step. You have self-awareness.
But let me tell you something else too, though. It's about the men, about the friends you keep around you too, right? Like when I dropped the friends that I had that were just like chasing girls and, looking for one night stands and stuff, I noticed that I started running into more women that weren't gonna be
Use
that.
you?
Yeah. Not even use me, like let me use them. And I don't mean like I'm trying to use them, but like let men in general use them.
Right.
And so it's like this thing where your aura changes as you get out of that toxic. Like I used to we both grew up in the Jersey Shore era, right? Gym, tan, laundry. That's what it was all about for men that were going out and chasing skirt, right? Yo, that's not a fulfilling life at all.
It's not.
It's not at all. And so when I say that I would rather be on the couch watching Netflix with you, smoking an L with the fur babies, not that they smoke also, but
Are you sure?
I would tell.
I
I don't know. Meow looks a little high. But I guess the point I'm making is like I would rather be in that situation than at a bar. You know what I mean? Or at these places where I'm vulnerable. Because even though today I have a better idea of being a man and I don't hold myself to these very stupid standards that we have traditionally used over my lifetime, I'm still vulnerable to it.
Yeah.
I could hear some shit online. Like we started hearing some of that bullshit from that racist dude.
Oh gosh.
John whatever from the whatever GT whatever. Anyway, like that shit made me mad, and I got angry. And it's like if I was hearing him in real life, like what would have happened? Like what would I do? Like I don't think I would hit him. Obviously, I don't think I'd start shit because I'm beyond that. I feel, but I'm vulnerable to it. I'm vulnerable to being that knucklehead that I was, because I'm not that knucklehead, right? Is there anything you want to say? Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I do have 2 book suggestions for you, Skywalker OG. Just kind of, it's a step in a direction to loving yourself more. The first is by Don Miguel Ruiz, and it's called The 4 Agreements. It's a very short book. And the other book recommendation I'm going to give you is also a very short book. It's called The 7 Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra. So those are 2 great starting points to really start to cultivate your own self-image outside of your abandonment issues, if that makes sense. And then we have another comment.
Yeah, beautifully said. Yeah, before we move on to the Joker 2, I want to read Melissa's comment. Very, very well articulated. She said, "I'm glad y'all mentioned daddy issues because yes, this impairs thought processes for females. But I was going to ask about Aaron's relationship with his mother. Very, very interesting that you said that. I'm glad you brought that up because that was a very, very complicated relationship. And I think It was made complicated by seeing his mother through the eyes of his father.
Correct.
D, his older brother, Aaron's older brother, didn't have those same sort of issues with the mom.
No.
Right. And Aaron's fury with her specifically about her dating her cousin's husband. I mean, it was something you didn't see in D. And look, I understand, like, you know, I've been in those situations before, you know, with family and having a partner that you're both
He was a
interested in.
younger kid. Like
Mhm.
he was younger.
But it shows you that he thinks that there's this world where women shouldn't move on after the dad dies.
Yes.
And that's bullshit. That's
Yeah.
bullshit. Women, you know, you always hear of a man being what's it called, widowed,
Yeah.
right? And then you have the friends setting him up, right? You have the friends, and it doesn't matter how old he is. He could be 50, 60, 70, it doesn't matter. That's socially acceptable. But the female society expects us to just let them cry for their husband for the rest of their lives, and like that's okay. Like it's not
Right.
okay to find another relationship when your partner's gone.
Yeah.
And that's bullshit. But Aaron, again, seeing his mother through the eyes of a father that was victimized by the male toxicity in the world.
So the dad, being as dominant as he was, he really, his entire viewpoint was the viewpoint of the family. Like that's it. Like this is how it goes and that's how it is. And that even played into, again, how he treated the mom. And
Ooh,
the
well
way
said.
that you treat your wife or the way that you treat your partner is how your kids are going to either A, treat their partner, or expect their partner to take on the same responsibilities that, say, like his mom took on, as far as like
Yes.
letting the dad like just talk crap to her. Now the mom clearly has some sort of narcissism. Now, whether that comes from the fact that she got married very young and she didn't get to go out and party and like do all of that stuff, you know, sometimes after a spouse passes away or there's a divorce, there's that sort of like
Absolutely. Trying to make up for lost time.
and then there's nothing wrong with that at all. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. But the mom didn't really care about anybody's feelings in that relationship where she cheated on the dad. Because let's be honest, that relationship didn't start after the dad passed away. It was a clear relationship that had been happening. And so that also plays into Aaron's psyche as well, because for your mom, who was supposed to be taking care of you, because let's be honest, he was still a child. He was still a child when this stuff was going on.
Absolutely.
So for your mom to be the person that's supposed to be taking care of you, to you now being the person that has all of these expectations put on you by your mom as well, the person that's supposed to protect you and nourish you, to buy her things, to give her a bigger house, give her a bigger life, that's going to set up a specific dynamic inside the relationship where the son is going to feel resentment towards the mom when he's giving her everything she so-called wants, but he's not getting the mom that he knows or is used to.
That reminds me of the scene. And look, we can't know that this is true, obviously, but
Right.
It reminds me of the scene where we saw it, and the dad had passed, you know, not too long after this or before this, and the mom and Aaron are kind of having a bit of an argument, and then he says something kind of fucked up, and she turns around and she's like, "I feel like I'm arguing with him right now."
Yep.
And that was powerful because I think that for the mom, she has these things subconsciously where she is missing the husband. How could she not? Even though they had a very tumultuous relationship, that was the man she's known, right? She's probably a little scared without him and, you know, intimidated by this big world that she's alone in now, right? But ultimately, she's also seen him through the eyes that she saw the father, right? And that's not fair to him. That's not fair to him either. And so this relationship goes two ways. And even though you can put blame on the father in terms of cultivating the relationship that his sons have with the mother, you can also blame the mother for
right, because
you know,
at the end of the day, one thing that I think that we all forget because we've grown into adults is how intuitive children are. Children know when things are right or wrong.
Hell yeah.
Even if they don't in the forefront of their mind understand what is going on, they know what is right and what is wrong. And I'm sure at Aaron's core, there was a grappling with how he saw the way his dad treated his mom. You know what I mean?
Well said.
And also, you know, his mom he subconsciously he knows that what his dad was doing was probably not right, but he also subconsciously expects that his mom is supposed to protect him, because at the end of the day, you live in your mom's body. Like, your mom is your first source of protection. She nourishes you and all of that stuff. So there's a resentment there for the fact that
she's not protecting him.
that she never protected him, really.
Very, very well said. I want to move on to the next comment real quick from Skywalker OG. And this is a very, very brave thing to put out there. And this is a very, very, this shows me how smart and how aware this guy is. He said, I know, brother, I was working 7 days a week and I spent all my money on my girl and was way too nice. And I think that's what pushed her away. And if it wasn't, then I don't know what it was. And that's such a tough thing to deal with when you don't know and you have to assume something, because then you don't know and you assume that, but then something happens and you're like, well, maybe it was this, maybe it was that, it wasn't you, brother. It wasn't you. At the end of the day, all it was that, you were trying to be the partner that you thought you needed to be, but you are understanding that you're leaving that vulnerability out there to a point where people can't take advantage of it. Right. I remember being in college, right? And I never could pick up on girls liking me. Never. If a girl was nice or talking to me, I just thought she was a nice girl and friendly. I found out like a decade after high school how many girls liked me in high school. Had no clue. None. Right. I am
you're a hot shot, are you? I'm just kidding.
I mean, they used to call me the Justin Bieber of Laredo Elementary.
Gotcha.
No, I'm just kidding.
I wasn't even alive then.
No, but the point I'm trying to make is that by the time I got to college, right, there was a certain expectancy of what you were supposed to be or how you're supposed to act. The frat guy image was one that I think is understandable to people in my generation. And so I was taken advantage of by women, by girls in college, who would pretend to like me, but then invite me over just to do homework. And then I'd find myself doing their homework.
And just, I
And,
totally get that.
I used to help people. I used to be a tutor in college, right? For the school at first. And then I started doing freelance. And, the girls that I dated that I'd eventually not date anymore, they were still very okay with asking me for help or expecting me to help with her homework or blah, blah, blah. Like it just, I don't know. It hurts sometimes still. And not today because I'm obviously over it, but in terms of like, wow.
You hurt for that version of you that allowed those things to happen.
Exactly. And I put more emphasis on me, that kid that I was when I was 19, and say, man, why did you let that happen to you, bro? Like, why? Instead of understanding.
Instead of understanding, you did the best you could with the knowledge and information that you had at the time.
Thank you.
So one thing I would like to say, Skywalker OG, is you may never know why the relationship ended or what you did wrong. All you can do is reflect on your behavior. I have a relationship that was one of my more serious relationships that to this day, I don't know why it ended. I have no clue. I came home.
Does it still bother you at all?
It doesn't bother me in a sense like, oh, I miss this person and what could have been. But I have noticed that on my healing journey, it's starting to come up because I never got closure. But
closure's a big thing.
Closure's a big thing. I'm going to have to then figure out, why do I feel like I need closure so much? Why can't I just accept what happened? And a lot of it is just accepting that what happened. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like, that's going to come up in your life. You're going to be 30 at one point, and you're going to think about the relationship that happened when you were 22, and you're like, why did that end? Like, what happened? Like, especially if it was a relationship where you feel like you put a lot into it, or you feel like you were blindsided with how it ended. So understand that that's a normal part of growing and being in relationships.
You seem like you're definitely on the right track, brother. Listen, we're gonna move on to the last topic. Joker 2 came out. We got to see it the day.
I don't know what that was.
I don't know what that was either. That was your best Catwoman. Listen, we got to see it the day after it came out on Friday, and people hate it.
Oh, if you haven't seen it, we're just gonna say right now, a little bit of spoiler alert.
We should preface that. Let's try not to spoil as much as we can.
Yeah. Of course.
But please, if you are listening and you don't like spoilers, obviously who doesn't? I mean, who does? Maybe even though we hate to lose you, maybe this would be the point for you to tune out. because we definitely don't want to ruin that for anybody.
Yeah.
I liked it.
I loved it. I thought it was
liked
amazing.
it. Look, I think that when I saw the first one, which I absolutely love,
That's one of my favorite
all-time,
movies of all time.
absolutely,
It was done so well.
very much so. I think when I watched that, I thought I saw them and I said, "Oh, well, they're not really going to make this comic booky, right? They're going to make this like a genuine movie that revolves around comic book lore." So going into the second one, I didn't expect Batman
I
or
didn't
Robin or any of these, like, not even deep dives, but like things that are like on the surface of Batman lore, right? But this was a Joker movie.
Right.
And this has been a Joker movie. And I think because so many people aren't yet familiar with or used to having movies about the bad guy, that it's a weird situation, right? And now we've been conditioned over time, like Breaking Bad. Everybody loved Walter White.
Oh, everybody
and he
loves
was the
an
bad guy.
anti-hero now. Like if
Yeah.
you give the anti-hero, if you give them their backstory, and especially if it's one that's built out of trauma, your people are going to resonate with your anti-hero.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. And so when I look at Joker 2, I didn't go in there with an expectation that we were going to get major plot points of a Batman movie. Like I didn't go in there thinking that we were going to see the Dark Knight, the second installment of the Nolan franchise. I didn't think that way. Right.
Right.
I liked it. I appreciated it. I will say this, right? I do agree with a lot of the people who talk about the lack of dialogue in the movie. It felt like Joker wasn't even in the movie for the first half, right? Just a lack of dialogue in a comic book movie is definitely too much, I feel like, of a gamble. You're talking about a product for which the pictures don't move. It's the words that move the pictures.
Understood. But do you want an authentic movie that actually portrays mental health, or do you want the comic book version? Because if we're going to do like something that seems real life, then we want what actually could happen. And in that instance of the Joker, he's already in Arkham Asylum. He's medicated, and they make a point to tell us that he's medicated. So because he is medicated, he's probably not going to talk as much, right?
Until he's off his medication.
Right. And then we come to the point where they tell us, like he's had, they've made a made for TV movie about him. Like he's been very popular and things like this. So that could also be an ego thing. Like, why should I have to talk to anybody?
No.
Without, and only talk to people that I want to talk to.
Listen, I think your point is very valid. Did it make sense? That's a thing that you could say. And yes, right? We could say it made sense in a lot of ways. But could you have gotten some of the portrayals that you got on vibes alone with no words? Could you have added the words and made it a little more clear for people who, like, comic book movie watchers, they're not watching The Whale or like, I mean, I don't know, maybe they are, but it's not supposed to be a nuanced type of movie. You don't go in there thinking that you're going to get this beautiful piece of art.
To expect that the second movie wasn't going to be nuanced when the first one was
exactly.
so nuanced.
That's a fair point.
That's silly.
No, and that's silly. It is. You're absolutely right. But I think, again, it goes back to this idea that, look, let me ask you this. What was the plot? Now, I know we know what the plot was in terms of the legality of the court case and all that. But what did the Joker ultimately want? He had the chance to get out. He had the chance to be the Joker. He wanted love. And that's very, very fair.
Not what he got at the end. See, and that's the other thing I think that people have a problem with, and I don't think that they realize they have a problem with, is everyone is very used to the traditional Joker and Harley Quinn, where Harley is this very submissive, very Harley Quinn's job is to serve. Like that's a line from Suicide Squad. And people are used to that dynamic where she's very like hoochie and she's just there to serve the Joker. And this movie, it was not that at all.
It was the opposite.
Harley Quinn was honestly the ultimate villain in the movie.
Oh, well said. Well said. She was the ultimate villain in the movie.
She was the villain.
She was. She fakes a pregnancy. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
And ultimately, look,
she only wants him as long as he's the Joker. She doesn't want Arthur Fleck.
Exactly.
She wants the Joker. And as soon as he's not willing to be the Joker anymore, she doesn't want him. And he becomes disposable. But people are used to that dynamic of Arthur Fleck luring her in with or not Arthur Fleck, the Joker sure. Luring her in with his charm, with his wiles, and she's just like this like fawning girl that he's saving, even though it's that toxic masculinity crap. That's exactly what it is. That's what they're used to. They're used to the submissive woman juxtaposed to the toxic masculinity, and that is not what they got in this movie.
No, and one thing I think that, to add to your point, that people may have not liked is that, when you watch a comic book movie, you're expected to see Easter eggs,
right?
Specifically
And there
Easter
weren't
eggs
any.
that lay out potential future plans.
were none.
Well, there was,
Oh, there
but then
were.
they all got taken away, because what you have is basically Harley Quinn saying, "I'm pregnant," setting up the
Right.
trilogy for Baby Joker,
Right.
and that's how we get what's his name from next Friday. No, I'm just kidding. You have Baby Joker,
Penny.
you have Baby Joker,
Baby
and
Joker.
Baby Joker is not real anymore, right?
Right.
She takes that away from us. And on top of that, the scene at the very end, which I don't want to spoil, but it leads us to believe that was the final movie, right?
Right.
I mean, but it also kind of sets up a way that they could continue it, and it's like playing with our understanding of comic book lore
Right,
as it relates to movies. That fucks you up.
because we talked about it in the car, and I said they really made it feel like Joker is not a person. Joker is an energy. And you told me, which I didn't know because I'm not really a comic book fan, is that Joker doesn't really have a backstory.
Mm-mm.
So the way that the movie ended really could bring in the energy that Joker is a vibe. He's
Yes.
not an actual person.
Yes, and you like that.
I do.
You
I
did.
love that.
And
I feel like that's a great way to continue to go through. I mean, that's what they
Jokers
do. Go
without an
through
actual
Jokers
backstory,
without
yeah.
exactly,
But
because he doesn't have a backstory.
You're absolutely right. And here's the thing. I totally understand where you're coming from, because I love that stuff too. I think the problem for me with Joker 2 is that idea that they was cemented in Gotham, the TV show, right? They had multiple Jokers there that were played by what's that actor's name from Shameless, the redhead kid?
His name was Ian in
Ian
Shameless.
from Shameless. Ian from Shameless plays the Joker in Gotham, and that's kind of the idea they set up, is that this idea that Joker is a thing that kind of like inherits you, right? It's almost like a possession.
Right.
And the Joker can be there's this line from The Killing Joke that my cousin told me or reminded me of, and basically it's like anybody can be the Joker on a bad day.
Yeah.
That's the point of the Joker.
Yeah.
Is that, and you look at what they did in the first movie and the second movie, and it's kind of like Todd Phillips was saying, society's responsible for the Joker.
Right.
You throw away these people with serious mental health illness and you treat them the way you do, and then they come back and they, perform these atrocities, and then we're all shocked.
Exactly.
And obviously
it goes back to the same thing, like why we have an issue with, mass gun downs is because we created a society where mental health is a stigma, and we create these monsters, and then we punish the monsters only without looking at the societal structure. And I think that's what Todd Phillips was trying to show.
Yeah.
That ultimately Gotham created the Joker. It's based, the Joker was birthed out of the underbelly of everything that was wrong
crime,
with Gotham. Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that they built this world that people want more of. And the second movie alluded to the idea that there's not going to be any more.
Right.
If you're upset about that, I definitely understand it, but it's kind of the point of comic book movies in general, right? There's no, like, okay, only one person has played Scarface, right? I mean, obviously there's the first one, but I've never seen it. I think it's black and white.
Mm-hmm.
That's Tony Montana. That Tony Montana is Al Pacino. Everybody
Right.
knows that.
Right.
Well, who's the Joker? I mean, there's many great actors. Romero, Ledger.
For me, the Joker is Jack Nicholson, because my favorite Batman movies
And that's fair.
are the Tim Burton Batman movies.
And that's fair. And that's very, very fair.
And for you, it's
so
Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger, exactly. And so, you look at this character of the Joker and you understand why actors specifically would love to tackle that role, because it
Right.
is nuanced and complex. But I don't know. Look, if you're going to do a comic book movie, there has to be fan service, right? And there was some, we got Harvey Dent in the movie. There were a few other Easter eggs that alluded to other Batman lore, but ultimately I think just people were down on the fact that, first of all, do you think the music was too long in certain parts?
There were certain parts where I feel like the music went on a little bit, but at the same time, like, it didn't bother me because, and maybe because I'm in mental health and all of those things, but I mean, that's where people go. I mean, I think about even in times where like I'm like in a fantasy world where, you know, things are crazy and like I spend too much time there. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I feel like even though the fans didn't like it, it all painted a picture of an actual mental health crisis.
Mm.
And what happens when you are enabled, what happens when you're around the wrong people. I mean, it showcased it all very beautifully in my opinion. So if you don't get anything else from the movie, you get at least a picture of what mental health is like for someone that has issues.
Beautifully said. It received a 30 or 33% score. Actually, it was 33 from critics, and I think 31 from
Wow, look
audience.
at that.
Was it worse than the Eternals?
I fell
Which,
asleep during Eternals and I was at full attention during Joker, so yes, it's better than Eternals.
yeah, I agree. I really felt like to call it the worst comic book movie ever based on the movie is unfair. To
Well,
call it the worst comic book movie ever because it didn't
see,
service
you know
comic
what? You know
books,
what I think
that's,
part
I
of it
think,
is?
fair.
You know, I'm just thinking right now, part of it is like everybody's used to the Joker being the rebel. And while Arthur Fleck was the rebel in the first one, he was never rebellious really in the second one.
In fact,
And so they were expecting that killer instinct of
yes.
Joker to come out
Yes. In fact,
based on what happened, and it never did.
beautifully said. In fact, if he rebelled against anything, it was the idea of rebellion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well
yeah.
said. Listen, that's gonna do it for us. Do you have anything else
Yes,
you want to add?
I
Shazers?
don't have
No.
anything else.
Okay.
We're so excited for all of you that tuned in. We really appreciate it.
Very much so. I want to thank Melissa for her comment. I want to thank Skywalker OG for really adding to
Yes, thank
the
you
show
so
with his
much.
comments. Really great stuff. Shout out to Captain Bird. You know, I definitely think your comment was very important about me looking
I'll
like
be
a Mexican
hearing,
kid
you know,
at
this is
Harrington.
literally you created a monster because anytime he gets carded, I hear about it for a month. So
Well, I mean,
thanks.
listen, I'm gonna calm down. I'm just gonna cut it, put it on
I'm
TikTok and
just gonna
IG
like
and
go
everywhere else.
tonight when we go to bed wearing a fur coat. It's not gonna be a big deal. I'll have my dire wolf next to me. It'll be fine.
Exactly. But listen, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank our guest, Polo Gutierrez. If you did not catch the beginning of the show, go back. Polo gives us a lot of really good information about what college football players are going through today and the difference between 10 years ago and all the pressures being put on these kids that are in line to make the NFL draft. And I think it correlates really well with Aaron Hernandez's story. I'm not saying the NFL made him into who he is or anything like that. I'm saying the idea of who he's supposed to be.
We're
right?
complicated people, and there are a lot of things that make us who we are. And unfortunately, the NFL did play a part in what made Aaron Hernandez who he was.
Yeah, maybe Urban Meyer, Florida, everybody. And
Exactly.
it's a system. It's not like they looked at Aaron and said, we're going to treat him this way. It's a system, I think, that needs to
Yes.
be better. But listen, we go live or have a recorded show on Tuesdays every week. Purse Full of Snacks is the name of the podcast on the Soup or Mario channel. If you were watching on Twitch, if you were watching on IG, Twitter, or X, wherever you were watching, Facebook, please go to the YouTube. Please go to Soup or Mario Pod
And subscribe
and share if you can. We'd very much appreciate it. We're going to keep rocking out and giving a platform for all of you. As we review as we review movies, TV shows, and documentaries while giving a bridge to their real world applications is what we're hoping to accomplish.
And if you'd like to hear more about mental health or anything like that, you can catch me on my TikTok at It's Ashley Smashly.
It's Ashley Smashly. And if you're a fan of wrestling or boxing or MMA, I have a podcast called Infighting, or I have a channel called Infighting Hub, where we do boxing, MMA, and wrestling. Sometimes, one of them on a day, and then sometimes all of them at once. So we were supposed to have a show today. We're going to have our wrestling show Thursday. And then for us, we're going to hopefully be able to get a live in by Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe.
And kind of set you up with what we're watching for the weekend.
Exactly.
Things like that. If you guys have any suggestions on things we should watch, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
100%. You can get at one of us at Mario Munguia on Twitter, IG, Facebook, X, basically everywhere. And then it's at Infighting Pod on all social medias, at Infighting Hub on YouTube. And did you want to give out your personals or no?
Nah, I'm good for now.
Okay, so it's Ashley Smashley at TikTok. She has a bunch of great mental health stuff for women and men, by the way. And yeah, so we're gonna incorporate these kinds of things. Yeah, definitely
Thank you guys
keep bringing it
so
to y'all.
much.
Until next time,
Have a great
peace.
night. Bye.